Brutally Speaking podcast is proudly sponsored by Rockabilia.com. For over 30 years, Rockabilia has been the go-to destination for all things band merch. With over 500,000 items in their online store and collaborations with today's hottest bands, you're sure to find something you love. Use our code BREW10 at checkout and take 10% off your total order. So go pick up your favorite new piece of merch now over at Rockabilia.com. And now, on to the show.
Say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing. This rings true because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, and if you're not having fun doing it, you're gonna give up.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 500th episode week of the Brutally Speaking podcast. I am your host, John, and this episode's guest to kick things off is Andrew Michael Wells of Eidola of Dance Gavin Dance. Honestly, when I was thinking about how I wanted to celebrate 500 episodes, I thought about doing the thing where it's this massively big guest and, it's a big deal. And I've done that in the past, with episode, 200, 100, 300, 400, so forth. And I really just figured, something that I think would be more fun, more work, but more fun, would be to kind of have as I like to piggyback off of Oprah's My Favorite Things. And this is a week of my favorite guests that I've had on over the show. And a lot of them are friends, really, at this point. People that I know that I would consider to be friends of mine through doing this show. And there's going to be a couple of curveballs maybe for you. But I think overall, when thinking about doing this, Andrew was one of the first three people I thought of. You'll see the rest as they drop over the next few days. But honestly, Andrew traverses kind of the end of one part of my career in the music industry of sorts, of booking shows, and honestly then tailing into me doing this show way, way back in the day. And it was really interesting. Him and I were texting leading up to us doing this, and it was interesting to go back to our first conversation and just think about how things have changed and, hearing... Actually, the more I think about it, it's not so much that things have changed, it's just that I think opportunities and Andrew being more of understanding what he wanted out of things and just, if I get the opportunity to do this, I would love to take advantage of these things. It was early into DGD, his time in DGD, and, he was excited to, tour and do all these things. And, at that point, I think The Architect might have been the album that he was working on for Eidola, but wasn't out. I think at that point, To Speak to Listen would have been the last record that was out. And so it was just interesting to kind of go back and listen to where things were. And I think that's kind of the fun thing about doing this podcast sometimes is going back and, like an audio journal, diary, whatever, kind of going back through and looking at where your life was, thinking like things you were excited about, things that, maybe you thought were a challenge at the time. And now you look back, you're like, oh my God, like that was not really anything, but hey, that's who I was back then, and, I'm still learning, and I'm sure if I continue doing this for another 500 episodes, I might look back on where I am at currently and just kind of laugh about the things that I thought and were stressing about. But it's crazy. It's wild to be sitting here. Like I said, I've done most of these. I've been sitting on these for a little while because I didn't know if I wanted to do that thing where I just start putting out a couple of episodes a week just to get to 500, but I wanted this to kind of happen naturally where it should. So I didn't do that. I've kind of been sitting on some things and just putting out one episode a week and keeping everything the way it was. And this is where it's at and where it needs to be. And I think that's been a really big learning experience for me, is just kind of letting things naturally happen and for them to unfold the way that they will. And hopefully you really enjoy this conversation. There's stuff that we discussed that at the time was not really known. Obviously, like him and his wife having a kid, that was not known. I had learned about that shortly before going to see him in Detroit on the Falling in Reverse tour that the band was on at the time. But lots of cool things in this. Eidola's Mend record was about to come out, so we kind of get into a little bit of that. But without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Andrew, and I'll talk to you on the other side of it. was gonna say your voice sounds a little little sore today. You've been doing some vocals.
I was tracking my ass off yesterday. I was tracking my ass off yesterday. But you're also going through a crazy compressor and some fucking other shit over here. So
Well, fair enough. First of all, I want to say thank you for being literally the first to start this Project 500 thing. It was a thing where I just was thinking about it, and like I had kind of said to you, and literally kind of copy pasted everything to the few other people I'd reached out to. But it's like the show isn't really about one person. It's kind of about, a bunch of different people, but it's more, I think, about having the honest conversations that kind of keep us going and keep us thinking. And when I thought of like, who are some of my favorites to talk to, it's clearly you, because we always hit on some really important talking points. And I think a lot of people who listen to these get a lot out of these. So I'm hoping, everyone who sticks around for the 500, the 7 people that are going to make up my 500, hopefully everyone really enjoys that. And, yeah, I'm just really appreciative. And like, I always say this to you in person, so and in text and all that, so it's nothing new, but gratitude all the way from my side over here to you. Always.
Absolutely, man. You are one of my favorite people to talk to in this format. It's always a genuine conversation. We always have good dialogue, and you're a homie, so it's always a pleasure, man. Happy to see you get to this stage in your artistic development too. It's crazy.
It feels weird. It feels weird to kind of hit certain milestones, but not. I mean, I guess I'm probably talking to the king of this shit, where it's like really the mentality is just head down and keep going forward, and you don't really take the time to kind of poke your head up and just kind of look around and be like, shit, we're doing the damn thing, and we've been doing it for a while. Like I'm sure you probably do the same thing, where it's just like I said, focused on the next thing, and you just keep going.
Yeah, there's a balance in that for sure that I'm learning as I get older as well, that you do have to take a moment and focus on the good and focus on the journey that you've had and take stock in what you've accomplished. But it is tough. It is really tough sometimes because you and I are very similar. You're very focused on what's the next thing, what's the next creative piece that you can develop that's going to be, the next break, the next milestone, the next accomplishment. And that's always good. It keeps you driven, it keeps you motivated, which is great. But you can get, bogged down in the mire where you feel like you're just shoveling shit, repeatedly. And you're like, where is this even going? I'm just digging a hole here. But it is cool, man. It is cool to once in a while just pop your head up and be like, oh shit, like this is a real thing. I had a few of those moments in this last year too, where, the Eidola tour with the Eviscerate tour was our most successful tour by a long shot. I mean, it was crazy. We were doing, 1,300 tickets in LA, 1,200 tickets in Boston and Worcester, Massachusetts. Selling out these rooms that was just like unheard of to me prior, to see the success of that band, just kind of fucking skyrocket with that record was crazy. It was very much not anticipated, but to see like 12 years of really hard work come full focus, and you get a different sense of perspective too. Because when I was growing up, I would watch bands like Thrice or Thursday or Circa Survive, in these venues like in Utah, like the Avalon Theater, which is like a 400 cap room, and just be blown away, be like, oh fuck, these guys are on top of the world. They're in a Sprinter van selling out this fucking venue, and you're 16 years old. You think it's the biggest shit in the world. And you get to that point as a milestone and you're like, oh, this is not as big as I thought. And you're like, man, I got to go bigger. I got to think even higher. So it's cool to have those milestone moments and like poke your head out and see how far you've come, and it gives you some perspective and analysis on moving forward. So it's cool.
I feel like there probably would have been some of that even with the tour you just finished up with DGD. Like, I feel like I could be wrong, because again, not the biggest fan of that band, but I don't recall you guys playing shows consistently that aren't festival dates doing a tour that big. So that's probably even got to be a trip, because like you and I have talked pretty consistently on here about like you remembering seeing the band at a venue, and then when you joined the band, they were still kind of at that level, and then kind of branching off and doing what I think is now more commonly known as like the size of a tour you would be doing.
Yeah, that was mind blowing to me. I mean, the first time I saw DGD was on the Rise Records tour. It was like probably, I don't know, it's like a few Tillian tours in. I think Tillian had been with them for a year or two at that point, and Acceptance Speech was out. I think Instant Grat was out or really close to being out at that point. I remember hearing songs from that, whether it was Will that showed them to me or otherwise, but it was the Rise Records tour, Salt Lake. I think like Secrets was on the package, a couple other bands. And I mean, yeah, it was like 75 paid or something, 110 people paid. And it was, it was this kind of intimate show. And building off of that from 2015, when I joined up onward, where Mothership hit, and then it was Afterburner or Artificial Selection, Afterburner, Jackpot Juicer. It was just these, like, every record did better than the last one. Every tour did better than the last one. It's just this momentum and this build that was insane to be a part of. And then, with this last tour with Falling in Reverse, it was mind blowing. For me, one of the biggest shows, like personally, was Salt Lake. It was one of the highest selling shows on the tour. I think it was like a little over 15,000 people. It's like 15,500 or something. It was crazy. And it was one of the highest selling dates on the tour. And it was at a place in Utah called USANA Amphitheater. I think it's called like the Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater now or something. But when I grew up, it was called USANA Amphitheater. And it's the biggest fucking place to play here. And if you're a huge act, you do multiple nights in a row or whatever, but it's a huge venue. It's a big outdoor, amphitheater. And it's been a dream venue since I was a kid. I mean, that's the place where your family, your uncles that are like, you still doing the music thing at Thanksgiving and Christmas, they're like, oh, you're playing USANA? Are you, oh, what, you're the one of six? It's like, no, we're the direct support. Like, we come to fucking fuck shit up. And it was crazy being on that stage. My dad was there, my family was there, and you get up and it's just a sea of people, and it was so cool. It was a really benchmark moment for me. But the tour is great. It was honestly really great. Everybody was super nice, very kind. From the bands to the fans to the crew, everybody was like on all cylinders, bringing their A game. Very fucking cool. I'm super grateful we got to do that tour, and that Ronnie took us out. He's awesome. He's a legend for sure.
I think the thing that was kind of crazy watching that, and I think it just speaks to, as much as people don't like this guy, I think it speaks to Ronnie as a business person, is very smart and pays attention to what's going on around him. And to me, I feel like something that he probably would have noticed from even back in his Escape the Fate days to now is that there's sort of has been, what I think is missing is like these mixed bills where it's not necessarily the exact same thing over and over and over and over again for 3 or 4 bands. But I mean, it's like if you have you guys, Black Veil, Tech Nine, Falling in Reverse, in my head, I would say there's probably like a very small Venn diagram of carryover from each one of those bands. Mm-hmm. But I think that showcases the beauty of like a tour like that is, or even having Slaughter to Prevail on before that, and so forth. But it's a thing where I think like he obviously sees like people are missing Warped Tour, like those mixed bill things where it's like you're getting a little bit of everything, and to see how he kind of hand picks things like that, where it's like, well, yeah, I know I could probably, on the strength of myself alone, could probably sell these out, but fuck it, at that point, let me just kind of do what I think people are going to really flip out over and enjoy from start to finish. And I know like even the date I saw, that even with some of the issues that everyone was having that night, that it's still a thing where it's like seeing Tech Nine be like the second. And it's like, okay, Tech Nine can come here and play a just under a 2,000 cap room, sell it out way in advance. To see him play when the sun's still up, and like people knowing the different songs and shows, like, this is insane. Like, where are you going to see a bill like that? To me, like I think I said to you that night, where it's full of headliners in their own right, top to bottom, And the fact that there's no egos, no nothing, everyone went on, played their set, did really great getting everyone warmed up for the next band. Not so much you guys, but that wasn't your fault.
Yeah, that one was I actually think Michigan's cursed for DGD. Honestly, we've had the last 3 shows we've done there have been rough, dude. Yeah, always something happens. To anyone who doesn't know that's listening to this, we had 4 people pass out during our set. It was 4. I think 2 of them had seizures because of the lighting.
Yeah.
2 were like heat exhaustion. So we had to stop the set twice to make sure that medical could get in and get everybody out. And it's tricky. You have to make a judgment call because sometimes, like we had a couple fights in Denver, and you're obviously going to have certain crowds that will want you to stop the whole thing. And there's sometimes you don't need to stop the whole set for those things. That's why security's there. They're trained and med staff is trained, so that everybody can have a good time. The concert can kind of go off without a hitch. But there are times, and you as a performer have to be mindful of that there are times for safety that you need to stop, and you need to have everybody take a step back and decompress a little bit, get whoever needs medical attention out, make sure that they're cared for properly, and then move on. So Michigan was tough. We got maybe half of the set, ish, if that. So, but the rest of the tour was off without a hitch. And to your point, I mean, the bill was just heavy hitters. Everybody could stand their own. Not to the extent that Ronnie can. That guy is, he's a genius.
That was wild to see.
Say whatever you want about this guy. He has been nothing but nice to me and my band and my crew. He's been super genuine, very accommodating. His crowds have been completely mixed with all of the best people you could imagine. I mean, any race, gender, creed, orientation, that you can imagine was at these shows. It was just packed with all types of people from all walks of life. And they were so kind. I mean, we've been on, DGD doesn't do a lot of support tours. We've done, we did, realistically, since I've been with DGD, we've done 2. We did Under Oath, two runs with Under Oath, and then this tour with Falling. And, we're more of a headline band. That's kind of, DGD's always kind of been a black sheep, even from the early days. So we just kind of do our own thing, which is cool. I like that. And our fans are amazing. Some of the best fans. But when it comes to support, like a lot of bands don't get that love, especially back in the day. Like you'd get bands get like, I've heard horror stories from, the guys in Trivium. They go out with these, big metal bands that get beers thrown at them and get booed off stage. And you sometimes you go out and it's a trial. Like you're fighting an uphill battle the whole time. People don't want to fucking hear what you have to say. And I've been to tours like that too. I remember going to a Circus Survive tour way back in the day. And I think the Deer Hunter was opening and Fear Before the March of Flames. And then there was a band called Hours that was opening. It was Jimmy Necco's band. And man, I liked them. I thought they were great. I thought they were a really cool band, but they're very like kind of long drawn out, soundscapey, kind of shoegazy at times. And they were definitely like overplaying their support spot in a way where, they had the 40 minutes, but they were milking the 40 with these like real long kind of meandering type sections. And again, I liked it, but the crowd was starting to turn on it by the end. They're like, bring out Anthony Green. They're just like fucking, they're just bored by the end of it, starting to heckle. And so we didn't have any of that on this bill. I mean, it was so accommodating. Sometimes there'd be casinos on the tour. Like we'd play some casinos on the tour, and me, Matt, and Sergio we're big gamblers. We love casinos. We're all sober. So that's our like main vice now is fucking gambling. And eating. Yeah. Oh yeah. Fucking yeah. Don't get me started on that. But gambling, we just, we love, that's like, lifting, gambling, and eating. Those are our fucking go-tos. And, but we'd go to these casinos that were attached to the venues, and people would come up to us after and be like, man, I never heard of your band before. Never seen you guys. And you guys fucking killed it. It was really cool. It was really refreshing. It was some music I'd never even heard of. Like it was really different. And we got that every night. It was people that just loved the music and loved the energy and really wanted to be in the moment with us. And it was cool. It was really cool. I think we got some new fans from that one. For sure, which is what we set out to do, is just kind of carve a new path. It's a new era, and we know we have a lot to prove. So I think that was a good way to do it.
So a couple of things come to mind, because I don't think I've really ever gotten to ask anyone this, but when you're in the middle of something happening at a show, like you're in, you've done your warm-ups, you're in go mode, adrenaline's probably already kind of kicking in once you're out there, and then you have to stop. How do you navigate finding that to get right back into it? Because you essentially have to entertain everyone literally at the drop of a dime now. Like, okay, everything's good. Back to you now. How do you navigate that?
It's tricky. It's a good question. Especially as a vocalist, like there's so much you get from the adrenaline push of like being on, like you hit your warm ups. Like John and I are very meticulous with how we time things. So like we both, our voices function in a similar way, where like, to give you some context for this answer, like, for the vocalists out there, like John and I have kind of similar warm up routines. And I do, Cheryl Porter is like an incredible vocal coach. I do a lot of her regiment now, which has been just a game changer for me on the road, just consistently every night, really pushing it. And it puts me in the pocket. But I'll start with like breathing exercises for 10, 15 minutes of just diaphragmic work. And then I work into some of the more regimented scalar stuff, opening up the soft palate, lowering the jaw, lowering the larynx, getting everything kind of attuned. And then the last like 10 minutes or so, I'll do like practical warm-up stuff where I'll sing songs that I really like that'll push my range. So I'll sing like a Morgan Wallen song or Justin Bieber song, or an old DGD song, where I'm able to kind of get my false chords going, get a little rasp, get a little screaming. I can kind of workshop how my voice is going to do that night based on the climate. So if I need to ping something in a different area or to get that note out, I know I'm cognizant of where that's going to be. And so that's my like warm-up routine. It takes like an hour, right? But it's not like your standard, like I'm just drilling shit for an hour. It's like a nice kind of calm, like it's breathing, routine work, and then some singing a couple of practical songs. It gets me right there every time. It's nice. And John's is about the same. But then you have like 10 minutes where you get up in your side stage. You've got your mic and the crowd's there, and you're like, and then you got to get pumped, and your voice is kind of settling in, which is nice. Because then when you get back out there, it's on and it's in, and you can just go for it. Now, you do all that prep, you get all that adrenaline going, and you're on stage, and you do your 40 minutes, you do your hour, and it's great. If you have to stop that and things start going wrong, or you have some interjection there, it's pretty tough, because mentally you're like locked in. You've done all this prep, you're right in the zone. And vocals are a mental task as well. If you're emotionally feeling drained, that's going to affect you. There's a lot of, mental bandwidth that you need to be able to sing. And so if you have to stop, especially if it's something that's scary like that, like a fan passed out and you got medical coming in, you got to walk off stage, let them do their thing, and you go back on 5-10 minutes later. Now your voice is like, what the fuck? Your voice goes into a mode. It's like, oh, okay, I'm done. Set's done.
Right.
I'm going to go into rest mode now. I'm going to go into decompression now. I'm going to go into warm and cool down mode. And then so I can be ready for tomorrow's set. Right. And so your voice already goes there. And so for me, it's tricky. You get back out, and then your first couple notes are a little rocky, and then you gotta fucking you almost have to re-warm back in to the moment and the adrenaline and pick it back up. But as an entertainer, you don't have that leeway. You don't have that gap. Like, they're expecting you to be on, and so you just have to push through it, get back on there, and like do your best to lock back in. If you have a couple bum notes, I mean, that's show business. Like, you're gonna have some bum notes sometimes. It's a human voice. It's not like a guitar. You can't just tune it up and fucking change the string. It's a biological instrument. You have to be aware of that.
Well, I was going to say, because for me, I know a lot of singers, through watching, although I don't watch as much shit like this anymore, music-based anything anymore, but it's like through the years, like with Melissa Cross and stuff like that, it's like, I've known vocalists who are like, I can't just start at this song, whatever that song happens to be. It's like, you got to kind of pace yourself and get there. And so to me, it's like, I remember watching your set, and when it kind of got cut short, it's like, okay, I may not be able to prove this, but I would bet some of the more at the top of your range things are going to be kind of maybe right in the middle, starting on the back half of the set, because that's where you're probably most dialed in and warmed up. Totally. And I think when you guys came back, you were like, okay, we dropped a few, we're going to kind of pick things back up, and we're going to finish our set. So it's like the time that you missed was all your build up to that. And I remember just sitting there going like, ooh, that's probably got to be really tough for you to be like, shit, I didn't have the song or two that I could lead up to, like, okay, here's going to be this note that's going to kind of tell me where I'm at, what do I need to push or back off or whatever. No, now I'm just in that song, and I just got to fucking go for it. And it's like, that's got to be tough. And I just kind of was like, I know how it feels from a crowd's perspective of like, yeah, the wind's kind of taken out a little bit. Like, like you said, the pacing of everything is off. So now it's kind of on you to kind of get us all back there. And especially since you're the band right before the headliner, it's like, you're kind of really carrying over all the momentum and then hand it off. And it's like, to have it just die on your set, it's like, that's got to be hard for you in that position for a multitude of reasons.
It's also, you're nailing it. It's also, if you can put yourself in my shoes as well, when it depends on the thing, right?
Yeah.
The occurrence that happens, but the momentum that's lost when you are in the process of picking it back up, you have to be mindful of how to do that too. So like, I'll give you two examples, one being this, and then one from the Eidola tour. That's kind of funny. If you have this, you have this show where someone passes out, four people pass out. You can't go back on stage and be like, open this fucking pit up. You can't just be like, I want to see you hurt somebody. You can't take that angle, because then you're like, who the fuck does this guy think he is? These people just passed out. This guy's trying to kill people. Fuck this guy. He's not even the direct, he's not even the main band. He's the fucking support. You can't do that shit. You have to be mindful of okay, how do I pick the energy back up without being a fuck about it, like without being insane. And the Eidola tour is actually almost an even better example. We had it's probably one of the smaller shows on the tour because of it was in New York. It was in Long Island. We did a show where it was because of a radius clause that we had with Periphery. The show got announced like 2 weeks before it happened. So the show was announced way later. And there was already a Philly show that was sold out at like 800 tickets. The fucking, what's that? Underground Arts in Philly. And then we also had like a New York proper show that had sold out as well. So we had and then we had a New Jersey, we had 2-3 options for people to come to, and they were all fucking sold out. Worcester, 1,200 kids, all these shows were fucking packed to the nines. And so then we announced this little Long Island show 2 weeks, before the show happens. And we still had a good turnout. It was probably 300-400 people. Not bad for that, that late, announcement with all the other shows in that region that you could go to. It was definitely it was more of an old school Eidola type thing. It was kind of a more of a divey bar. And again, cool crowd, grateful that they came out. But this one ended up being really tricky because the venue didn't tell us in advance that it was a no mosh, no crowd surfing venue.
Oh,
they didn't tell us that. And every other show on this Eviscerate tour was fucking banging. If it was in one of these rooms, the pits were fucking sick. You go to LA, the pits are just fucking, these kids were throwing down. And we got a Eidola signature because of my affinity for fitness. We have the row pit that kids have been doing where they all sit down and they do seated rows in the pit. It's fucking awesome. I love that shit, especially East Coast. These guys will fucking go hard. It's super fun. It's just so engaging and so fun. But this venue in Long Island, they didn't tell us ahead of time that it was no pit. Now the crowd knew this, but we didn't know this. So I'm on stage. We're 2 songs in, and the crowd is like, they're singing. You know, they're getting there, kind of, you know, grooving. Their hands are up, everything, but they're not pitting. And by this stage, like once we get to Ashes and Cacanom, like people are fucking going off. You know, like Philly, the whole crowd's fucking going insane. And this is what I'm used to. I'm fucking like 3 weeks into this tour. I'm used to people just going ham. So I'm like, are we sucking? Like, are we just sucking right now? Like, what's happening? And so I'm like calling for them. Like, are you you pussies? Like, what the fuck? Like, let's go. And they're just kind of looking at me like they're looking at each other. Like, are we allowed? I don't think we're allowed, you know? And I don't know what's happening. I'm like, what the hell? Like, let's go. And so finally, like after I called for it, I was like, you fucking open this shit. They start opening it up and they start pushing. They start, you know, having a good time. And these like 3 huge ass security guards jump in the crowd and they just fucking break everybody up. And they just stand there and they're just staring at me with the death stare. They're just like, what are you fucking, you know, they're fucking big old guys. You know, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'4", 240, 245. These guys are fucking 300 pounds, you know, 6'7", like big ass dudes. And they're just standing there. And so the crowd is like, you know, they're a little timid. And I'm like, what the fuck? So we get done with the song. And I'm looking at these guys. They're like, is this a no mosh venue? And they just fucking, you know, nod their heads. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me, bro? So this is all to tell you, like, that really threw the energy off, because now it's my job to be like, okay, fuck. How do I get these people back into the performance now that the wind is knocked out of it? They can't mosh. They can just sing along, wave their hands, do like the, you know, the indie rock thing. So I'm like, fuck. And so we fought against it for a little bit, but the energy was like, it was kind of rough. And so by the end, I think we got blacklisted from this venue, because by the end of it, Sergio and I just got pissed. We started flipping off the security guys. We started diving in the audience. We got them pitting again. They started taking people out of the fucking bar. We got done. Sergio like broke a fucking painting in the green room. Like it was some rock and roll shit for sure. Yeah, I think we got blacklisted for that one. But yeah, so it's just you know, I mean, fuck, dude, it's rock and roll. We're not even like a hardcore band, you know. It's like we're not a fucking scram band or some crust punk band. Like we're pretty tame comparatively, you know. We play some heavy music and everybody has fun, but it's like, I mean, what, you can't go in here and not tell the band that it's a no mosh venue. I would have worked the room completely different. You know, you tell me it's a no mosh show. Okay, that's fine. I can do a little more crowd work on the singing side, a little more, you know, engagement there, start talking to people. But you don't tell a band that it's no nothing. Like, what the fuck? You know?
I'm surprised that there weren't signs like all over on the stage or something. None. Like to alert you and or for the fans. But like you said, they probably already knew.
Yeah, well, the fans knew, because I think there was signs coming into the front of the venue, but okay. I mean, we didn't know. They didn't tell us shit.
No, it's always, I don't know. It's always weird when you like I say, like shows have kind of infinitely since booking shows have been kind of ruined for me, because like I just take in all the information in completely different ways. So it's even like, you know, your guys' show that I went to, it's like I'm looking at it going like, show stopped, and instead of kind of looking around or whatever, like everyone else probably was, I'm just like, how do you get a crowd back? How do you get a shed's worth of people back on your side?
Into it. Yep.
Because it'd be one thing being in a 300 cap room where you're literally right there on top of everyone, but you've got a GA pit, at least at our venue, and I know every shed's kind of set up a little bit differently, but sure. It's like you have a GA pit area, you got the seats behind them, and then you got the lawn. And it's like, to me, like that was the thing I was thinking of, because I was shocked at how fast the lawn filled up versus the seats at our venue. Totally. And so it became this thing where it's like, when I turned around and I'm looking and I'm like, okay, how do you get that person that's like at the very tip top end of the lawn? How do you get them re-engaged back into it where they're either not able to really see you unless they're looking at the screens above them.
Mm-hmm.
And all they're doing is hearing. Like, how do you get someone back into the show at that point? And like, when I thought of that, I was like,
yep,
that's probably why the bands that are on this bill are where they are, because they have learned how to navigate the different size crowds and how to make it feel like it's not the 10,000th person in the back, but that you're one of the 400 in this room. So
totally. Yep. Yeah, it's definitely a process. You know, you learn over time, and it's something you can really only learn by doing as well.
Yeah.
Like, that's something that there are many things, you know, I think any like athletes would tell you this too. There's plenty of exercises you can do to prep yourself for a sport, but there's nothing that really trains you for a sport like the sport, right? Like, you can do all these resistance trainings and all of this HIIT and all this endurance to train for a soccer match, but nothing's going to really get you prepared for that environment like being in that environment. You know, you could play in your basement for 10 years, and then the second you walk out onto a stage, everything goes wrong and you sound like shit and you're fucked. Like, nothing prepares you for touring like touring. You know, there's just nothing like it. And so it really comes with time. You know, I've been doing this a long time at this point. I've been doing this almost 15 years of playing, I think over 15. Yeah, I've been playing shows since I was 14. So I've been doing it 20 years as of next year, of gigging out and like playing from the smallest, shittiest bars and house shows to the biggest amphitheaters and arenas that you can imagine. And there's, you know, you take a different approach with each one. I think that's what it trains you to do is there's going to be a different approach to an intimate black box theater type show versus a shed show. It's going to be a completely different approach, because like you said, rather than everybody's right here in the front and they can see me and interact with me, I've got to try my best to get into the heads and the minds and the hearts of the people all the way in the back. You know, how do I include them? How do I make them feel like they're being performed to as well? You know, so yeah, it's a challenge, but you learn a lot from doing that over time.
You know, it's funny, you just said something and it really kind of resonated. And I guess I didn't really think about it this way until how you just said it, but it's like, I almost wondered if, because like as of today, no longer need to do physical therapy. I believe I don't have to go back to my surgeon for anything moving forward. Like today, like we're just on my own now. But what's crazy is like everybody, like today, even my surgeon, even talking to my physical therapist last week, everyone's kind of shocked at how far I've gotten in, like, realistically, it's been since September 19th. So the day before my 40th is when I was non-weight bearing. From that moment forward, I stopped wearing the cast, other than like when I saw you, when I'm in large crowds, because I can't control.
Of course. Yeah.
But beyond that, it's like, I didn't wear my boot. I pretty much was just like, let's start the rehab. Let's start walking. Let's get going. And it's funny to be, like I said, barely a month removed from that. And I'm done. Like, I mean, there's still things I have to do to continue my rehab on my own, but everybody, all these doctors are just like, where you're at now is crazy. Like, even doing the last round of like, let's compare your right leg to your left leg, like the good one to the bad one, see how much further along you are. And it was funny because I was being told, like, we're looking for you to be at about 80 to 90%. And like, that's great. That's where you should be. And I was at about 75% a few weeks before, but I stayed kind of the same. It was about 80%. So not a whole lot of growth. But the thing that my physical therapist was saying is, he goes, well, through what you've been doing, you've also been strengthening your other legs. So it's not as incrementally better from the last time, because that leg's equally getting strong now. Sure. He goes, so it's just stayed the same, but you got stronger in both legs. And I was like, oh, that's it. Was a weird way to feel proud, but I was like, oh, I'm still at 75%. I'm not at 80. And he's like, well, actually this 75 is more impressive than the last 75 because you brought up the other one too. And it was like, oh, yeah. And it was just like, yeah, like people usually aren't this far along. And I was like, I think I just fucking wanted it. Like, I wanted it that bad. I wanted to be done with this and I wanted to move on. But there was something else in there, in that in my rehab, a lot of it really funnily, I don't think that's a word, but it's like a lot of the exercises that we were doing, I was like, oh, this reminds me of like playing like DB drills in football, where it's like, okay, you got to have your legs this far apart. This is like your motion, working out and stuff like that. It's like, okay, yeah, I want to do this. And there was times doing different exercises. Like we're on like like a seated like squat rack kind of a thing. And I had to like face like my leg on the part that slides with you, so you can kind of do like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember them asking, he was like, how's that feel? I was like, feels fine. Form's shit. And he was like, the form will come. And I go, I know, but in my head, through all the years of sports and lifting for sports and shit, it was like form first always, because you don't want bad techniques. And I was like, so it's hard to break that mentality, even doing this, where it's like, just get your leg used to this. It's like, well, no, I know how to do this. My body knows this, and my form is shit, and I know it is. And so it was just kind of funny to kind of fall back on something I haven't used in a decade, essentially. But it's like, it's all relative. And I feel like it's honestly what, like, that perfection of like, I need to get this. Okay, I didn't do so great the first rep. Second rep's got to be way better. Third rep, I better be fucking dialed in. And taking that, I think that approach of just like, I don't want to be reliant on other things and people and shit, because that's just not who I am. And then additionally, my form and everything, because I can hear all the coaches from the years of playing sports, like, that's not how you fucking do it. Form first. Like, make sure you're doing the reps as best as you can to get the most out of them. And it was just kind of funny to think about that. But like you said, it's like it kind of takes all of those things, and you don't know where your frame of reference to help you out down the road is going to come. But when it comes, you're just kind of like, oh, I can just kind of snap back into this thing because it's something I've already learned from previous years of doing this.
I mean, I would actually argue that's why you made the progressions that you did make in such a quick span of time, is because you were focused on the form, rather than just like getting the bare minimum done. You know, like, your doctors are going to tell you that because that's the type of patients that they're used to. But the fact that you were so hyper focused on getting the form down, I would wagers why your recovery process was so much quicker. Form is king. I mean, it really is. It's the same thing with anything that you do, whether it's from music or bodybuilding. You know, you want to make sure that you're setting the foundational principles in the best way possible. You're laying the brickwork to build on top of that, so that your foundation is as sturdy and as complete as possible. And that's the same thing with vocals. It's the same thing with playing guitar. Like, if your technique is shit and your foundation is garbage, it's going to crumble. Even if you're able to stack a few things on top, maybe you get some tricks in your book, maybe you got some cool shit going on, it's going to crumble at some point because it doesn't have a foundation of principles to be built upon. You know, it's not built on something that's substantial, you know. So but that's good, man. I'm glad to hear that you're healing up so well. That's fucking great.
I'm very excited about it myself. I do have kind of another odd question I just kind of thought of in regards to all this. Obviously, it seems like, you know, you're maximizing whatever time you can and not doing DGG stuff to keep Eidola rolling, doing whatever. And then vice versa, in the downtime of when Eidola is done, usually ramps right up into a DGD thing. Mm-hmm. This might be a kind of an odd question given the fact that you share some members between both of the projects. Mm-hmm. But has someone like Sergio, who plays with you in both bands, like, has he said to you at any point in either iteration of this example, but has he said like, oh man, because of like what you're doing in DGD, you took something from there and it's elevated what you're doing in Eidola. Man, after this last Eidola run, you're just on another level now for DGD. Like, are you or any of the guys in the band noticing that like what you're doing from one to the other helps and elevates very quickly? Or has it always been a consistent thing for you?
Both. I mean, both. Sergio and I are, not to fucking toot my own horn, but we're the hardest working people that I know. You know, and I know I almost exclusively surround myself with extremely hardworking people, especially over the last year. I had a really bad habit of this in my early days where I would just, I do believe in lifting people up. I believe in meeting people where they're at and trying to give them the best opportunities possible to grow within a framework. But that led me to being taken advantage of on multiple occasions by multiple people who were lazy, entitled, and just fucking toxic. And that had been a norm for me for over a decade, man, of people just like taking credit for things that they didn't do, that I did, or manipulating and lying to me and taking advantage of me for money and tours, and just being fucking toxic. And I those types of people were, because I was trying to foster an environment of like lifting people up and lead by example and work as hard as possible, because that's how I was raised. That's how I've always been. Back when I was working day jobs, I would work 2-3 day jobs at a time. Since I left home at 16. We talked about this on previous podcasts. It's like I have never not worked ever. I mean, it's just rest is not like really in my vocabulary. Very seldomly. I'll take a little vacation here or there, maybe take a week off. Almost never do I take like days off at a time. I mean, I'm always working on something. And I love that. It keeps me motivated. Like I don't view it as work, because it's my perception and my focus to build a better future for myself, for my family, for my loved ones. And so over the last year or so, I made a very conscious effort to cut those types of toxic people out of my life entirely. There were some long-term friendships that had to be severed in order for, there's a thought in my head where it's like, I'm actually, instead of helping these people, I'm actually enabling them to be lazy. I'm actually enabling them to be entitled by taking advantage of me like this. Like, this can't continue. And hopefully they figure their shit out, but they're not in my life anymore. So I don't really have to worry about it. Like, the people that I surround myself with now match or exceed my level of intensity and ambition and work ethic. And those are the people that I want to be around, because that's what I believe makes the best art. It makes the best foundations that we talked about, laying the best groundwork to build the optimal product, the optimal art piece that you're trying to convey to people. And those are the type of people I really love to surround myself with. And so when it comes to DGD or Eidola, there's a symbiotic relationship, and it's been navigated to the point where there's a mutual respect in both parties, where it's like, yeah, Eidola has the wherewithal and the foundation and the fan base now to stand on its own two legs. The fact that we're selling out 1,000 cap plus rooms, that's a sustainable income in and of itself. DGD is obviously, we're in the 3 to 5K cap range. We're doing these, big support tours. DGD's been around twice as long. And obviously, if you're comparing, is the more financially stable project, but both are very financially stable. I'm extremely grateful. I do not take any of that for granted at all, but I also cognizantly built those things. I was conscious in that process. It wasn't like I was just like, yeah, let's fuck around, see what happens. Like, I'm intentional about every fucking thing that I do. Everything from fucking womb to tomb, every single thing I compose, every single thing I write, every person that I build things with, that's an intentional process for me. So I'm very aware of how these things benefit each other and how they symbiotically move with each other. And, you get feedback once in a while. It's like, oh, it's a fucking new DGD. It's just a carbon copy of Eidola. Fuck you, dude. Like, shut the fuck up. You don't fucking know anything. You got baby ears. You don't even understand diversity in music. Shut the fuck up. Come say that shit to my face, you little fucking pussy ass bitch. Like, that shit's fucking so played out and so stupid, because you're not actually listening to anything. You're going off some Twitter fucking opinion. Who the fuck even uses Twitter or Facebook anymore? Some dumb motherfuckers. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, come say that shit to my face anytime. You're welcome. Or open your mind and open your ears and actually listen to it. It's like, Eviscerate sounds nothing like DGD. Are you fucking stupid? Like, the shit's in fucking 7-string drop tunings. It sounds way more like a Counterparts or a fucking, you can dissect and constructively criticize any element of that shit, but to say it sounds anything like DGD is just a disingenuous bullshit argument used by people with an under 80 IQ. Like, shut the fuck up. When you're talking about Mend, you've heard Mend. Does it sound anything like DGD? Fuck no, it doesn't. It's completely different. It's a fucking pop rock record, bro. Like,
I'd even almost argue to a degree it doesn't sound like
it doesn't sound like Eidola at parts, right?
No,
It sounds
yeah,
completely
that's what I was
different.
going to say. But I was going to say, at the same token, though, and we've talked about this over the last 2 records at least, that it's like you've pushed the band's sound far enough and introduced new things along the way that you almost could say a record like Mend is Eidola because you've already introduced those elements. We just explored them a little further. However, you're going to probably get a lot of people that go, oh, this isn't Eviscerate. I don't like this. Or this isn't
Totally.
Architect. I don't like
100%.
this. Or
Yep.
you're probably also going to get people who are like, I never liked Eidola. I don't like anything other than Mend, which I'm interested to see how that brings people in. And also from a touring perspective of like, all right, if you're going to probably do with that record like you did with Eviscerate and with like the Architect, all right, who the fuck do you bring out then? Because now you open yourself up to be like, we're going to bring out a kind of pop leaning or indie rock leaning
or a rapper. Like, dude, there's
something,
much we could do with it. And that's another reason it's intentional. I set this up well in advance. And I told them, I was transparent too. It wasn't like me doing some fucking shtick that these bands do. Big things coming soon. We're really changing the game with this one. I was like, yeah, we're doing a double album. They're completely different. Expect it. And if you don't like it, I don't really care because I'm not making it for you. I'm making it to make good art and make stuff that I want to hear and make stuff that I enjoy making with people I enjoy making it with. And I know that it's good to me and that it'll resonate. It always does. And so I'm super excited because it's a departure in some really cool ways. There's obviously sounds that we're embellishing on, new territory that we're covering, but again, it sounds nothing like DGD. And to further on that point, the new DGD record is, it's 14 songs of just a lot of new territory for that band. That doesn't sound like Eviscerate or Mend or The Architect or even some DGD songs. I mean, there's some stuff in there that's still very lighthearted, very playful. It's true to DGD's sound for sure. It's a DGD record and you can tell, but it's got its own feeling, which is what we really wanted to do intentionally with that too, is like Johnny era albums have a vibe. Kurt era albums have a vibe. Tillian era albums have a vibe. How do we stay true to like kind of the core nature of that sound, which to me has always been, again, John, Will, and Matt. They're the actual core of that band. How do we now develop a new feeling and a new energy behind a new era? What do we capture in this album that we maybe some places we haven't gone before, revisit some places that we haven't gone to in a very long time? And I'm very confident that we pulled that off. I'm very confident. Me, John, and Will wrote all the vocals on the Falling tour in the back of the bus. I mean, it was so raw, dude. It was I had my Apollo and like like this Neumann. It's like $1,000 little Neumann that we didn't even have headphones in. We just literally we set everything up in the back lounge of the bus. We bought some shitty fucking little low-key monitors. They were like RCA monitors from Best Buy, and we set them up so fucking shitty. And we didn't even have headphones on. We just passed this mic around, so like you're hearing the song back through the mic in the demo. And then John and I had to be aware too, because we're like, we have to sing every night, right? So we can't just be out here fucking full voicing the demos and full screaming the demos on off days or even on days sometimes that we would write, because you'd blow your voice out for the set. So what we did was, these demos are so raw, dude. We would, have me singing the melody low, and then you'd pitch it up with there's a Sound Toys plugin called the Alter Boy. It sounds really fucking, just kind of chipmunky, but you get the melody down. And then John would do these things where he would like talk the lyrics, or he'd whisper the lyrics, and just sounds so funny. He'd do like a Rat King voice, or he'd do some voicing where it's like, okay, this is going to be screamed in the recording, but you hear it back and he's just like, you're like, oh man, this sounds raw. But as musicians, you can take from it and look at it and hear it and say, okay, this is cool. Like, this is catchy to me, even at the rawest stage, which means that when it's done, it's going to just slam. And so John and I fly out. We're filming this, together on the 29th. We fly out on the 3rd of November. We'll be there for 3 weeks and doing 14 tracks. And then And Will has a lot of vocals on this record too, surprisingly enough. Will has some really cool voicings he's never tried before. There's a lot of like you call and answer type vocal parts, a lot of interwoven
Take It Back Sunday
layers.
style stuff.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. It's very, because it's really, that was a really fun process for me too, because Matt Domer and I will collaborate on certain things, but for the most part, it's like, hey, can you write something to this part? And he'll come up with his great ideas. We'll like workshop the theme and he'll run with it. But like melodically on Eidola stuff, I'd never collaborate with anybody. It's just my writing. And then the same thing with DGD. I mean, well, I don't say nobody. Occasionally you'll have like a co-write or something that we've done on Eviscerate or The Architect. You have an engineer that's like, hey, what about if you try this? Like that for sure is always going to happen. You're always going to have that. But like the core of the ideas is coming from me. And then when you have this process where you're with John and Will and you're sitting there and everybody's brainstorming all of the ideas, it's a whole different process. It was really cool because we all have different tastes, right? Like I have certain tastes from more of a pop and an R&B standpoint, and then some metalcore and some heavy stuff. John has his like really great sense of cadence and rhythm. And then Will's taste is very unique. And he loves like the classic, like pop punk and emo and like the really post-hardcore OG shit. And so he'll like, I have a tendency to overcomplicate melodies, right? Where I'll take a melody and I'll fucking do these runs and all
track running
tags. And oh yeah, dude. So I have a tendency to like overthink, be like, oh, is that cool enough? Did that go as far as it could have? Could we make it this? And sometimes it detracts from how catchy and hooky something could be, because you want your audience to be able to sing it back. And so that was really cool because Will would come up with something that I'd be like, oh, this is like really simple and very effective. And I wouldn't have thought of this. I would have thought of something way more complicated, but that's not what the song calls for. The song calls for something that's grippy and fun, And so it was cool to get his perspective on it and just every single thing get checked off by all three of us, where all three of us would be like, that's it. We'd hit gold with it and be like, that's the thing. That's the thing. And then we'd wake up the next morning, we'd have some of the songs stuck in our heads. We're like, that's a good sign. That's a really good sign, where we'd like throughout the tour be like, fuck, that hook is good. Like that's actually really good. Like we really hit something. So I'm excited for both of those records to come out next year. I think that they cover new territory across the board artistically. I can confidently say that like nothing's being rehashed. There's nothing in there that's like a duplicate or a rehashing of old shit. It's all new and creative. And it's been fun. You'd think that after writing and recording 50 songs this year that I would take some time off, but no. I literally have been like writing a solo record while I've been home too. So it's been crazy.
I was going to say, I was telling someone, because I had at this point, this episode's already been out. It's already out now as when we're doing this, but I had done the episodes with Christian Lawrence, who plays in a band, a metal band full of children. If you can make the analogy there. Sure, he filled in for Ice Nine Kills.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he has an NDA, so he can't technically be in that band.
I got you. You say no more.
Yep. So we did like a 5-hour long chat doing this, and it was definitely like, here's 2.5 hours. We're just kind of shooting the shit. There's things in it. And then we get into it's honestly outside of you. It's a very you-centric way of looking at the music industry, where it's like his band with Ricky from Ice Nine and a few other dudes from other bands. They have this band Hillhaven. And so, they're not on a label. They don't have a manager currently. And so one of the things we were talking about is, I was like, you all come from a pedigree of bands where you easily could have gotten signed, easily could have top tier management, all this kind of stuff. Why did you not choose to do that? And so he broke it down. He's like, okay, a band of our size, we're basically a brand new band, yeah, we can spend all the money on these things, but he really broke it down. And I was like, yeah, man, fucking into it. And a lot of people have been like, I really enjoyed that. And it's like, that's why I do it, because it's interesting to me, but it's also like, okay, here's someone giving you firsthand experience as to how they've navigated this career. I'm sure you can take something from it and apply it to whatever you're doing if you're trying to make your way in this industry as well. But it's also a thing, you know, in it where getting to kind of know someone on a personal level and then also on the professional level is really interesting. And I knew when I broke it in half, I was like, this is a lot. I mean, 5 hours is a lot. But it's like at the time I realized there was a few other episodes I had done that were sort of the same. And I realized a lot of it was because it was right after foot surgery. I literally couldn't do anything but sit or lay in bed. And like you were saying, it's like, I'm not good at not doing shit in some way, shape, or form. Like, yeah, I might fuck off and play a video game while I'm working on the podcast, but I'm still doing something productive. And so I was like, oh, I know why this was 5 hours, because I didn't have anyone to talk to. I couldn't go out and see people. This is sort of what it was like in the beginning of the pandemic, where you're just like, oh, I don't have this thing anymore. It's not readily accessible to me anymore. I need to fix that. And so I kind of had to go back and apologize to people and be like, I'm sorry you sat through 5 hours of me talking. I was just excited to talk to anybody at that point. So I know that sometimes even in that, if you're left to your own devices, sometimes it's hard not to just go internal and then be like, all right, I know I'm a lot right now, but I just need to like be everywhere all at once because I've been doing fuck all of nothing. So I can imagine you being the same, where you're like, all right, men's done. DGD stuff's almost done. We're at this part of this. I should just chill the fuck out and enjoy my time at home. No, I'm gonna keep doing something else while I have the time, and I guess more importantly, the capability to, because I think that's something I learned in my downtime is like and full transparency, I haven't done it yet. I've still done all my stretches and all my exercises here at the house in various ways, but like I haven't gone back to the gym because I wasn't entirely sure that I could really do much at the gym, where it's like, other than just being in a new building, I can't really do anything yet. So I didn't want to rush to get there and then be like, I can't do anything beyond, you know, bands and shit like that. But it's something I really would like to pick your brain about that I know is not knowledge that is out there yet. By the time this actually comes out, it probably will be, because this, I think, is not going to come out for a good months. Because I'm just like you, I am getting work done now, so I don't have to be stressed about work when it needs to be done and it's crunch time. So I would assume this probably won't come out until probably the beginning of the year. So by then you should definitely have your kid. But for those that don't know and will, you're having a kid.
Yep. I find out the gender next week. Super excited. Yeah. The due date's in April, and this will be my first child. So definitely a long go. My wife had a miscarriage a couple years ago that was really tough, and you know, it was very tough. It was very tough for both of us navigating that, and just very grateful. Everything seems to be going really well so far. Thank God. Knock on wood, everything continues to be healthy. She's about 16 weeks along now, and it's been great. I'm super excited. I'm very, very excited. I've always wanted to be a father, and I am very much looking forward to it. I think it's really cool also that, you know, the drummer of Eidola has a 18-month-old, you know, son, and Will has a, you know, 8-month-old son. You know, it's 7-8 months, and it's just cool, you know, that they're going to grow up with some really cool you know, kids around their age group too, which is going to be awesome. I'm really excited about that.
What goes through your head when you find out? What went through your head?
Man, my wife surprised me. It was crazy. I started crying. It was just insane, because we had been trying for a while, and like almost a year, and we, you know, we were working with a fertility clinic, and we didn't do IVF or anything like that. We did there's a couple other procedures you can do with hormonal stuff before then, and we hadn't been trying for an entire year, but it was about a year. And we had some ups and some downs in that process. And right before I left on the tour, we were pretty actively trying one of these methods with the clinic, and we didn't think that it took. We thought, like, as I was leaving, we're like, okay, we had some pretty clear cut signs that it wasn't, it hadn't taken. And then the tour is going without a hitch. Everything's going great. We're like, oh, we'll just try when you get back. It's going to be fine. And then she came and surprised me in Salt Lake at the Salt Lake show, and our 10-year wedding anniversary was coming up, and she handed me like this card with a bunch of pictures in it. And she's like, hey, you have to look at them in order. And I was like, okay. And I thought it was all just anniversary stuff, because it's pictures of us with our dog, and of us traveling to Europe and Greece and all these places, and in Spain, and going through these pictures. And it was all great. And then I get to the end, and it's an ultrasound picture and 2 positive pregnancy tests. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, we didn't think it took, but I started having some symptoms, and I was like, oh, I'll test just to see. And I did 3, and they all came back positive. So I went to the clinic, and they did an ultrasound, and we found the heartbeat. I was like, it was just insane. So I was crying, and then I went out and basically told the whole tour package, and everyone was really stoked. And it was a really cool moment. And then playing to 15,000 people right after that at my hometown huge venue in front of my dad was all full circle. My dad found out he was going to be a grandpa that same day. It was like he was tearing up. It was a really profound moment in my life. It was really cool.
I feel like for a multitude of reasons, I feel like as a very creative person, without being like about it, but it's like in my head, I could see you sort of either writing a song a la Creed, where it's like, here's a song that was inspired by me learning that, you're coming, and everyone kind of looks at that song as being cheesy, tacky, whatever, but it's like, you can't not listen to that. Be like, man, like, yep. Dude found out he's going to fucking be a fucking dad and wrote like this song about a kid that he doesn't even know, had never met.
Yep.
And this song lives on as sort of like a this is how I felt in the moment. And to me, it's like, I just don't see you being the type of person that somehow it didn't inspire something from you. So
yeah, I absolutely. I mean, I'm already, like I said, I'm already writing a solo record, like right now, literally actively. I've been just so inspired, and that's been a huge part of the process too. And I already thought I worked hard to try to provide for my wife and my dog. And now it's like, I want to just, I would love to fucking, I'd love to retire from active touring by the time I'm 40, bro. I do not really like to tour. It's not really something I enjoy. There's a really funny clip that I like. That's it's Michael Jackson, and he's doing an interview that's a tour promo, and they're like, Michael, he does this. He's like, I'm coming out on tour, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, and they cut, and it's a behind the scenes shot. And they're like, Michael, it just doesn't seem like you're like that you like this. Like, you got to really sell it. And he's like, well, I don't like to tour. He's like, it's fucking hell for me. Like, it's so difficult. Like, I love the fans, and I love the locations, and it's, all of that's beautiful, and everyone's so supportive. But like the act of touring, being away from your family and putting your body and your mind through the ringer for weeks at a time in this very volatile environment, it's very high stress. He's like, it's really tough. And then at the end of the clip, they're like, oh, well, you got to sell tickets to the tour. Just pretend, just like fake it. He's like, okay, I'll do it, but the truth. And they're like, okay. And they're like, all right, Michael, action. And then the first thing he says is, I love to tour. And everybody just busts up laughing. And they're just fucking, he's like, what? You told me to fucking fake it, bro. And that's, I don't know. That's, I think it's a beautiful clip, because that's how I feel about touring too. It's like, I'd love to get to a, dream big picture. Like, I'd love to get to a place by the time I'm 40 where I can kind of retire from the active touring cycles of things, where both bands, you know, because as it's been for the last like 10 years, like I'm usually gone away from home. It's a 6 months minimum.
Yep.
Usually, you know, between every time I go into the studio, because I don't just do one thing or one project. I don't even do one thing for each of the projects I'm in. I do multiple things for multiple projects. So it's like, you know, you got, if you just do one thing, you're just a guitarist, you're just a drummer, or you're just the vocalist for the one project that's actively doing things. Well, then, you know, when you go in the studio, you're just in for your, you know, if you do guitar for DGD and that's it. If all I do is second guitar, fuck, dude, that'd be, oh my God, it'd be fucking cake. You go in the studio with Stefan or Chris and you're there for what, a week, 5 days? I mean, I'll fucking lay that shit down like it's nobody's business. You go in there for 5-6 days and you call it and you're good. You got a whole record of shit. But because I've also compose and I do, you know, production and stuff, and I'm doing vocals, well, now I'm in the studio for 2 to 4 weeks of instruments per band. There's a month and a month right there, right? 2 to 4 weeks. Eidola is way more intensive. Eidola, I Mend was 2 straight months. It was 2 months of like drums, production, vocals, guitar, bass, like everything was womb to tomb, like 2 straight months, 8 straight weeks, fucking January to March of this year, all the way through. And then you go out and you do DGD guitar tracking. It was before that. And I had a solo tour and I had these other tours. And then you go out and you do DGD. It's like, okay, I'm out for another month doing vocals. And you do, you know, Falling in Reverse tour and this festivals. You do festival fly shows, music video content filming. I'm have to be in all of that. So, and I fucking, with Eidola, I write the treatments and I basically directed a lot of this stuff content wise. So I had to be on set 12-hour days, making sure everything was running, making sure the vision was there and everybody was collaborating and cooperating. And so it's, you know, it's very time intensive, as you could imagine. And it's 6 months away from home minimum, I would say. That's like a good year. And that's been a decade of that. So it would be really nice that, you know, having a child like really is putting a lot in perspective for me of like, I don't want to just miss. I've missed so much, and a lot of musicians can attest to this. I'm absolutely not unique in this statement at all. A lot of musicians, I mean, we're all human. A lot of us, when we actively work like this, you miss funerals, you miss big first moments, you miss weddings, you miss, you know, huge life moments. Life kind of passes you by. And I missed a lot, man. I missed my grandpa's funeral recently. I missed my aunt's funeral. I had a couple friends that committed suicide. I had to miss, you know, both of their funerals due to, you know, obligations that I don't just work a 9 to 5. I don't get to take 3 days for bereavement. You know, I don't work a 9 to 5 sounds. I mean, God, in terms of hours worked, holy shit. If I only worked 40 hours a week, oh my God, that sounds great. 40 hours sounds awesome. I work way more than 40 hours. It's not even fucking close. I mean, you know, it's hours and hours every day. And you don't take sick days. You don't take bereavement. You don't cancel a show and lose $100,000 or whatever because you got the sniffles. Like, you just don't. And there are going to be people who criticize that say, oh, you're doing too much, you're working too hard, you need to have balance. Those are all valid criticisms. I think they're all valid. I'm just not capable of that at this stage of my life. Like, I know what's necessary for me and my family to thrive and survive in this economy and to excel and to exceed. And that requires selling out shows and selling merch and being on the grind. And I'm so grateful and fortunate to have a fan base between both bands that sees me for who I am and supports me in that endeavor. I cannot thank those people enough. That's just been a very fortunate part of my reality. And my hope is that these pieces of art and my spirit continue to resonate with other people to the point where it continues to be like a symbiotic relationship. And again, like I said, it just would be great to get to a point where, you know, I can approach the art from a different perspective, where touring isn't It doesn't have to be the end all be all of you have to tour and sell t-shirts to make a living. It'd be great to get to a point where I have enough stockpiled and saved up, or I'm always innovating ways to deliver art to people in different ways that make it worth their time and money and investment, that require less, lengthy periods of time in tour. So I have a lot coming with that, more specialized events. I think a lot of bands, I've been saying this for years, but I think a lot of bands are pivoting to that now, where you see this kind of standard, like, oh, it's this album 10-year anniversary, we're gonna run it, we're gonna run it back, and there's a nostalgia thrive there, and those are all fine. That's a good example of that. Motley Crue did one recently where they did all of the
Whiskey.
Sunset Strip. Yep, they did Whiskey and Roxy, and they did all their classic venues, which, by the way, are fucking tiny. I mean, I grew up, my dad was a huge hair metal fan, so I grew up thinking the Sunset Strip was like this monolith of like this crazy, this is where hair metal started, and these venues are packed out. And then I've sold out all of those venues multiple times, Whiskey, Roxy, all of them, and they're tiny. Like, you get in there and you're like, what the hell, dude, this is crazy. And it's fun, it's engaging, but it's that perspective thing. But like, to the other point with Motley Crue, they're offering these very select fan experiences, and they're, you're charging a decent amount to get those tickets, but
it's like Jack White.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, you do these fan experiences, and it's more connected with your fans. And so I'm always thinking of ways to deliver products like that and tours. Like, I have this vision for Eviscerate and Mend, where we do 2 nights in each major market city, and we do each album front to back each night. So we do an Eviscerate night and a Mend night, right? And so you kind of cater for the shows. You come to the Eviscerate night, it's chock full of fucking heavy support acts, and it's where you go to mosh, it's where you go to throw down. The Mend night is where you go to put your lighters up and sit back and have a drink and fucking and just go. But yeah, you understand that is way more financially viable for a band. You don't have to tour nearly as long, and the fan experience is way cooler, because if you love those albums, and we would throw in other stuff too. You do Eviscerate, but then you throw in some of the heavier Architect songs. You do Men, right, and Perennial Philosophy, and these types of jams. So that's kind of the vision for it, is like finding new ways to incorporate that rather than just the standard touring cycle. So it's ways to get innovative. The music industry, as you already know, and a lot of people can see, just like a lot of the world and the economy, things are expensive. People have so many things they can choose to spend their money on, right? And so you're in competition to provide the best experiences, so they prioritize you to spend their money on. But it just, with anybody, food's expensive, gas, rent, those things are not lost on any of us. They're expensive for everybody. So you just have to be innovative. I mean, that's how the music industry's always been. You have to think outside the box. You got to try new things. And if you stagnate and you let some of those things fall by the wayside, that's kind of where you see a lot of attrition. You see a lot of fans just kind of dip out and go somewhere else. So
it's funny to hear you talk in general, because like when you had, sent me a text like, hey, by the way, I'm going to be a dad. And it was funny because like, and I'm not saying this to speak out of turn, but like there was a time years before you were making a comment, because 40 has always seemed kind of been your number, it seems like, because I remember years ago you going, if I could tour at this level that we're at now and sustain it for, I think you said 4 years, 4 or 5 years, which would have put you right around now-ish. You were like, I'm fucking done. I'm out. I can retire. So it's funny that it's like every time we seem to do this and there's sort of like an ending in sight. Like, all right, I know how I'm ending Eidola. It's going to end here. Fuck it. This is the last record. Well, now there's 2 or 3 more records beyond that. Okay, I know that if I tour at this way, making this will set me up financially, and I can retire or kind of go on a little bit of a hiatus from what it is. That I really wanted to pick your brain and be like, how has the idea of a child being in there, like, how does that just fuck all that up? Because in my head, it's like children aren't by all accounts. Children are these beings that just exist. You can't control it. There's not a whole lot you can do. You just have to get through it, essentially. And to me, it's like knowing your personality type, which is a lot like mine, where I probably, when I'm in it, I'd be like, okay, we're figuring it out. We're going. Leading up to it, though, I probably would bullshit myself and be like, okay, this kid comes out, we're going to do this. This is, and I would try to do like I do with a lot of things in my life, where I try to get it on some sort of a track and then go, okay, so if I do these things and then moving forward, and this is how we navigate it. Can't do that. So to me, I just wonder how well you're going to do with not being able to be that forward thinking and allow yourself to actually kind of have to be so in the moment, which is not saying you're not capable of doing it, because I definitely know you are, very much like I am as well. But I have to be very intent. I have to be very mindful of being that dialed into something. And I don't usually allot myself a lot of time to be that present on something with, like I said in the beginning, without having my head down thinking of the thing I'm working toward next. How hard do you think that's going to be for you to navigate?
Oh, it's going to be a challenge for sure. I mean, you hear this from everybody that's had kids, where it's a life-changing moment for a lot of people, not just biologically, but psychologically, spiritually. If you're on that wavelength, it's like people have, it's your closest thing to full creationism. Like you are creating a human life that's conscious and living and feeling. It's your flesh and blood, or even if you're adopting a child, like you're responsible for this tiny human, and it's supposed to change you. It's supposed to radically alter your perception of reality, because you're caring about something more than yourself, more than anything around you, to sustain its life, to help it grow, and to teach and instill. And that's even not even going all the way into detail on familial building and legacy and all these other things that you could comment on, that people have all these different perspectives. And raising kids, just like everything else, everybody's got opinions on how to do it. And everybody's got 10 different studies that counteract 10 other studies on what you should do about sleep, or what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat. And there's just conflicting information everywhere. But the reality is it's going to change you no matter what. And for me, it's a change I'm really excited about, because I can't predict it and I can't plan for it in terms of how it's going to alter my perception and how it's going to alter my ability to perceive long-term goals and to structure my life around those types of things. And I am going to have to be in the moment and fluid thinking and embrace that. And so it'll obviously come with its challenges, but I'm really looking forward to it. I'm very positive thinking when it comes to this sort of thing, where the excitement of being a dad outweighs all of the nervousness or the potential drawbacks or detriment to, I wouldn't even say detriment. I would say, any perceived, anxieties I would have about my future in music or career planning or anything like that. I'm so much more excited to be a father and have that be a priority than anything else. So
this is another kind of a weird thing I've been thinking of, given the fact that you guys at different, like you specifically, get to go around and not live at home. So you kind of get to that satiated itch of like, I don't want to be home. I want to go to like New York, or I want to go here or wherever. And I know at one point you and your wife had moved away from Utah. Mm-hmm. And we have discussed how you feel about where you grew up over the many times of having these podcast chats. Has maybe your perception on where you live and grew up changed now that you're thinking about it with having your own kid grow up where you grew up?
Yeah, I mean, my perception on that actually changed before the kid was involved in any capacity. My perception has dramatically changed for Utah in general.
Sorry, I just like that.
Oh yeah, the little I got this hydraulic deck. It's so sick, bro.
I need to get one eventually.
Dude, my home studio is so sick. I wish I had a little more space, but I'm buying a house in January, so I'm going to build out something way crazier. But this is great for now. This little townhome that we're in is awesome. Utah's phenomenal. I love it here. I actually really legitimately love it here. The qualms that I had before, or the different perceptions I had, I think were just because of that teen angst of growing up in this environment and just still trying to find myself, still trying to find who I was and navigate my path as an artist, still having some wanderlust of like, I need to travel and see the world and experience. And it's like, I've been fucking everywhere, man. I've been everywhere many times, and it's beautiful. It's great. I recommend anybody that has the opportunity to travel and has the means to do it, because you'll learn a lot about yourself and whoever you travel with, and you'll learn a lot about other cultures and areas and food and architecture. And I mean, it's a beautiful, incredible world out there, and I'm so grateful I've gotten to experience it to the level that I have. But when it comes to being gone so much and going to these places, a lot of times I really just want to go home. I just want to go to my fucking nice ass bed. And, back to, I live in a very small town in Utah called Eagle Mountain, which is just, it's basically to west of American Fork, Lehigh, Provo, Utah County. It's probably 20 or 30 minutes off the freeway in the west. And so it's like, it's got its own pocket of stuff. Like you got your standard, your Costco, Walmart, your few chain restaurants, a couple mom and pops, but it's all stuff you have to drive to. It's probably 5-10 minutes. Where I live in a suburb, it's just the suburb. Like there's nothing out here. You go outside, it's just mountains, and there's like a big open area for our dog to go and run up and down. We play fetch with him every morning and night, and it's quiet, man. It's just so quiet, and I fucking love it, because when I'm on tour, it's so loud. It's just so goddamn loud all the time. It's so loud every day. Like, God, you wake up and it's people fucking slamming their shit around and getting dressed and doing this whole thing, doing warm-ups and practice pads and guitars. And then you go to sound check and it's fucking loud. And then you have playback, and you go to meet and greets and everybody's super nice, but they're, yelling over each other to try to talk over the talk back. And then you're warming up, and then you're playing your show and it's real fucking loud. And then you get done with the show and your ears are ringing because of how loud it is. And then if you're in the old days where it's the party days, then you have to spend 2-3 hours until 2 a.m. socializing and partying and drinking and drugs and all this dumb shit. We're all sober now. So it's like, now we go to bed. Now we sit on the bus and we play Baldur's Gate, or you're reading, or you're playing Hades in the back lounge. And, there's a little bit of noise, but for the most part, it starts to simmer down by about 1 or 2 in the morning. And then you try to sleep on the bus, and it's a challenge because you're moving the whole time throughout the whole night. And that's just, it's in your ears the whole time. And then you wake up and you do it all over again. You do that for 7 straight weeks. And then you come home and it takes you at least a week of it's like when you ride hella roller coasters all day, or you're like on a cruise where you're on a ship for a week, and then you get off and you're like, oh, everything's kind of weird. Like you got to get your sea legs back, like it feels like that when you decompress from tour. And 9 times out of 10, if you didn't get sick on the tour, you're going to get sick right after the tour, and you're going to be laid out for about a week to 2 weeks. And so you're talking 8, 9, 10 weeks of this environment. And usually if you're in 2 bands, by the time that 10 weeks is up, you're right back out. You're going back out on tour, or you're in the studio. And then you're in the studio, it's loud as shit too, because you got to do riff after riff after riff, take after take after take, make sure everything's perfect. And I love that shit. I love performing. I love recording. But it's loud. It's the best way I can describe it. It's just like nonstop noise all the time. And so when people ask me, I get a lot of meet and greet questions about like, what do you listen to when you're home? It's like
Nothing.
fucking nothing. Soft brown noise, pink noise to go to bed. The sound of my ceiling fan when I'm sleeping, like a lighthearted podcast, maybe a stand-up comedian once in a while, like with a nice baritone voice, like something that's just real low key, and so for me, yeah, being home in Utah is it's nice, man. It's quiet, it's safe, it's very chill. It doesn't cost a ton of money. It's not the cheapest place. There's places in Connecticut and West Virginia and some other places where the cost of living is a little lower, gas is lower,
No sales
buying
tax.
a house is lower. Oh yeah, yep. But it's way cheaper than when I lived in New York by a monumental stretch. And yeah, like I'm paying less than half of what I was paying per month for, I'm in a townhouse here that's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, and it's like less than half of what I was paying to live in Manhattan in like a 1-bedroom of 400 square foot. Like it was like
Studio.
a hotel room size studio. Yeah. It was nice. It's by Central Park. You pay that much because it's Manhattan and you get access to the city, but just as a space, not tenable. I mean, you can't do that long term. I'm not capable of raising kids there. That's just not in my wheelhouse. I know some people can do it. That to me is just a little too close quarters. I need a little bit more space. I don't need a mansion. I don't need 10 bedrooms, but enough for everybody to have their own space. Like my wife and I in this space, like we have our main bedroom. We have like a side room that's more of like a yoga, fitness, meditation, workout room that we share. And then she has her office for painting and her library and stuff like that. And then I have my studio. I've got all my guitars in here, my manly, and we have our own creative spaces. And so the shared room will obviously, if we should be closing on this house before the baby comes, but you turn a room into a nursery, and then you still have separate spaces where everybody can roam. And so for Utah, for me, it really has over time become the perfect place to live. I love it. There's so much access to the outdoors. Now, my wife and I are in a button heads over where in Utah to live. That's been a point of contention on where we're going to buy this house. So we'll see what happens. We have a lot of family in Utah County. Her family in particular is Utah County based. And so, that's kind of where she's leaning. But my family's in St. George, which is about 4 hours south of here. And it's much closer. It's like Red Rock, it's not the Uintas where it's nice, mountainous, in that regard, but it is like, you live in Washington City and you're 20-30 minutes from Zion National Park.
I was going to say Zion is like my only frame of reference for any of that kind of stuff in
That's
that
exactly,
area.
It's exactly that. I love St. George. I would live there in a heartbeat. St. George, Washington City. It's just beautiful, man. I mean, the weather's great. It never really gets cold. Summers are nice, especially if you have a pool, and it's just beautiful, man. There's way more economy and like a tight knit environment. It's like a small town, the big town vibe. Like there's not a ton of people, but it has a ton of mom and pops. Like it's way more locally sourced stuff, way cooler restaurants. You've got Zion and Bryce and Canyonlands, like all these national parks right there. It's, if you want to gamble, it's 45 minutes to Mesquite, or you drive an hour and a half and you're in Vegas. Right.
Right.
Literally hour and a half, hour 45, you're in Vegas. You want to go to LA, it's 5 hours, if you want to drive it. Or there's an airport they just built there. It's a 45-minute flight. You go to LA anytime, or pop up to Salt Lake, 30-minute flight. It's like, that to me is like a hub. So I would love to live there. Cause again, it's quiet. It's still quiet, but it still has all the outdoor stuff that I like, but a little more central hub. this is my dad's first go at being a grandpa, so he would obviously love for me to move down there. So he's, he'd be very excited.
It was just kind of interesting, like thinking about it, because I remember, I think literally if we go back to like the first chat we did,
Mm-hmm.
and again, I'll put the caveat on, I don't know if part of what I remember to be kind of anger about it all was sort of maybe, because I don't think you were in DGD at that point at all. Like, I don't even think you were like had filled in or anything. I think it was just Eidola. But I was going to say, it almost felt like there was a lot of resentment of, I can't do these things because of where I live. I don't like this area because of how it made me feel growing up. That it's like, I know that's not how you feel now over the tenure of us doing this thing and growing as friends and people, but it's a thing where I know that there was resentment. And I think that that's something I've even had to kind of reconcile myself at times. It's funny you were saying the thing earlier about like having to set the boundaries and cutting people out that just you realized weren't bringing like a return of investment of the friendship or whatever you needed out of it. And that's something I've had to go through in the last like year or so. And, I'm not from Michigan. I'm from Delaware originally, but now I'm at a point where it's like Delaware is not home. I have a few people left on my mom's side of the family that are out there, but not enough to keep me going. The city itself has changed. The state itself has changed exponentially since I used to live there. Even Kalamazoo, which is about an hour away from here in Grand Rapids, where my parents live, that's where most of my dad's side of the family that lives out here, that's where they all live. But it's like, I was just having dinner with my aunt the other day to thank her for giving me like the knee scooter and all the shit that I needed to use over the last couple of months. But, I was talking about how there just kind of gets to this point where, unfortunately, I feel like people aren't, either they're not aware, they just can't step outside of themselves to understand this, that it's like some people have lives and it's fine that if you outgrow each other or just can't see each other as frequently anymore. But I think they're also with family becomes this sort of weird thing where it's like, well, we're family. And it's like, yeah, but there comes this thing too, where it's like for me, I said, it's been hard my whole life to navigate family because my youngest uncle is like 9 or 12 years older than me. And I'm that same age gap between my oldest cousin. So it's like, I'm directly in the middle. So it's like, while I wasn't looked at as a adult by the rest of the family, I am with the kids, and the kids were so differently aged than me that it's like when I'm living on my own and I can't afford to like come down for Christmas, or I can't afford to buy everyone Christmas gifts and stuff. And then they got to be that age and it's like, well, it's really hard for the kids to come up with money. And it's like, yeah, no shit. But you all made me feel kind of bad about it 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Or now everyone's married and I'm like, I can't do this because we're doing the in-laws thing and we got to travel to the other side of the state or whatever. That you just kind of find and get settled into your own life, and it gets kind of hard to navigate it with others. And it's not because, and in some instances it is like we just said, we got to set the boundary and this person just can't be a part of your life anymore. But then the flip side of it is you're also not pushing out others. It's just like, I just don't have time or energy for you. And that's fine because we're all living our lives and our lives are all different. And I don't have kids. We're not going to have kids. So, I mean, and, it's like we still get kind of some shit about getting married around Christmas where it's like, we're coming up to Vegas for Christmas because that's where we got married and that's when we get to celebrate it. And we know we have the time off. And a lot of people are like, well, we just know we're not going to see you around the holidays because you guys take off and go somewhere. And it's like, sorry, we lived the life that we chose because of how it works for us. And so I always kind of wondered as I get older and I think about, moving, because there's been talks of us maybe moving eventually in the next couple of years. We've kind of talked about what does that look like? And for me, I have said all along, I'm fine with moving away from friends and family. I don't live in a city with my friends and family. So I was like, for me, it wouldn't feel any different. Talking to Bridget's mom sometimes where she'll be like, I haven't seen you guys in like a month. And then she'll try to not make us feel bad, but she'll be like, well, John, when's the last time you saw your parents? And I'm like, oh, in person? It's probably been about a year. And it's like, they live an hour away. Some of that is by design of setting boundaries and such, but some of it is just, I don't go down there that often. And when I do, it's to go get Chinese food, and then usually we leave.
Mhm.
So it's not planned out. And I know how that has been to navigate, and I know how people make me feel about that. And I've had to kind of, like I said, sort of reconcile places I feel like I outgrew, and I had that resentment of what it did not offer when I was 18, 19, 20. But I look at them differently now, where it's like, I'm not a kid. I don't look at it as all the things I don't get to do or I couldn't do. Now I look at it for like what it is, where it's like when I go sometimes, I like that it's a little bit more woodsy and outdoorsy kind of down there, and it's a little bit slower than Grand Rapids. And it's those things. Speaking to Utah, like the area we stayed in, I think was about a 15-minute drive outside of Zion.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, I think it was a little bit further than that. But either way, I liked the views of the mountains and everything, but where we were, it felt like, to me, like the city or the little town in Tremors, like where it's like you're just surrounded by mountains. Here's a mom and pop grocery store, maybe like one little bar saloony type thing.
Sure, yeah.
That's about it. And I was just like, ooh, I think this is a little too outside of some city for me. Salt Lake, and what little bit we got to explore, I think seemed like it would be really cool. I'd kind of like to have had more time to explore it.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, the one thing I thought was kind of interesting was just to see, like, because Grand Rapids has a shitload of churches here. Like, we are a very religious area, but it was interesting to feel how it felt different there. Yeah. And I don't really know how to articulate it any other way than that, but it's like, I could just feel like when we were walking around downtown, I think you'll probably know this better than me. We're going to a venue where Nothing More was playing. It's a double venue. They have like an upstairs, the bar.
Yeah, the complex.
Okay, yeah. So we went there, and there's not a train, but like a trolley type thing that runs through downtown.
Yeah, it's called tracks. Is what they. Yeah, okay. It's like the trolley system that's downtown. Yeah.
So I think about maybe less than half a mile away from the venue, there's this giant church just like right in the middle of the fucking city.
Yeah, that's Temple Square. Yeah.
Okay. I remember looking at that when we were parking down that way, and we drove by it almost everywhere we went. I had to drive by that church. And I just remember being like, it's so ominous. Like, it's just so large and looming. And it almost like literally does feel like the whole city was built around this. So it's like literally the church was the focal point of the whole city, and everything revolves around it, literally and figuratively. And it's just weird to feel that as someone who's never been there, had only spent maybe, I think we stayed like 3 days, 2.5 days, but it's like every day I would drove by that, I was like, it's so fucking weird to like look out and just see mountains and freedom and space, and then feel so claustrophobic by church and religion, and then in like industrious things. And I don't know if that's just like, I pick up on weird shit when I travel, like pick up on weird vibes, but I just was like, ooh, I don't know how it would be to live here. Like, I feel like you just sense that and you just grow up with it, and it just stays on you.
Yeah. I mean, you covered a lot of topics in that. I think, breaking it down for me, your priorities and your perspective always change over time, or at least they should. If you're experiencing a lot of growth and experiencing different viewpoints and perspectives of other people, and things that I used to find oppressive or hindrances in my youth, I think stemmed from my own insecurities, my own lack of understanding, my own want to understand myself and my surroundings, my own selfishness of like wanting certain things and them not being delivered to me, and having to feel like I was fighting a battle to get them. And I think that's pretty natural when it comes to teen angst, and you're in your young 20s and you're all piss and vinegar and you have expectations and entitlements. And I think it's all pretty natural. And for me personally, I can only speak to my own experience, but I grew out of a lot of that and gained a greater sense of appreciation for all walks of life in terms of how people cope with life and reality, because it is difficult. Loss is hard, living is hard. There are moments of great joy and satisfaction and happiness and love and celebration, partnered with moments of catastrophe and chaos. And I think that's what makes life worth living. You don't read an adventure story where the protagonist goes nowhere. You'd be fucking bored out of your skull. You don't watch a movie where nothing happens. I mean, I guess there's some movies you might, there's some movies that will play on that. There's Seinfeld parodied that a little bit. Is like, what if we write a show about where nothing happens? It's just following these four characters, doing nothing. And then, but even that in and of itself, there are protagonistic moments in that tell a story that are engaging. You follow George Costanza going through all these insane moments in the series, or Kramer, and it tells these stories, right? So you engage with them in a way that creates this kaleidoscopic tapestry of what life is. And I find that to be very beautiful. And that's really helped me gain a greater sense of perspective when it comes to where I live, and Utah in particular, where, I can choose to feel oppressed or like in my own space, and this makes me feel a certain way, I'm going to kind of fight that. Or I can just see it for what it is, and get what I can out of it in a way that's prolific to me, in a way that's if I know that I'm aware of my decision-making process, and that the only thing I can control is my reaction to something, rather than trying to manipulate and control the things around me and the people around me to fit my mold, the happier I am. And I've realized that more and more over time. Every time I fight that, I lose, and things get hard, and things get stressful, and they get cataclysmic oftentimes. Whereas if I don't fight that, and I'm more focused on my reaction to things, and gratitude being like the semblance of what I base my reality on, that's when I find the true dance of life comes into play, and I am more happy. I've always said that I think happiness is a really lofty goal in life. It's like happiness is very fleeting. I think my opinion is you could choose more inherent values to anchor yourself to have a more enriching experience in life. Happiness, you can, I'm sure plenty of people are happy in their addictions. That it's, I remember being a fucking pothead for years, and you're stoned out of your mind, and you're comfortable. You might be elated, or you might be happy, but having that as a goal or an anchor in your life, I think is somewhat misguided. I don't think that leads to the optimal enriching experience you could potentially have in your life, that prepares you for the inevitable chaos that can happen in life, whether that be loss or hardship. And that's kind of the goal for me, is just finding like a balance of all things. And Salt Lake for sure has a vibe. Like you definitely pick up on that downtown. Like your description of it's pretty apt. Temple Square it has this vibe to it. It's kind of ominous for sure. But if you go beyond that, and you actually, because you could dig into what I was saying here is the choice that you make as a perceptive, because you can feel it, right? You go there and you're like, this is fucking weird. I feel this vibe. And then you can lean in one way or the other. You could go, okay, well, there's definitely like a religious oppressive structure here in the legislature that controls XYZ, and controls alcohol limits, controls, you could really dissect that. You could go down a whole rabbit hole of how integrated the church, the LDS church is into all of the systems that make the government function and the state function, right? I'm not a politician. That's not really in my purview to control. I could choose activism. I could choose all these other things, but those things don't lead me to, like, my purpose is as an entertainer. Like that's who I am. An entertainer, father, husband, brother, son. Like these are all things that embody me. They're the things that make me happy. They're the things I'm passionate about. So I think being overly focused on how you can fix the world, it tends to lead a lot of people into existential crisis. I've found that a lot of people that over focus on trying to have this like Superman complex and solve every single issue possible, it is very taxing on the body and the mind. So it's within my purview to say, okay, how am I going to interpret this feeling that I feel? And when I go to Temple Square and I go to that church and I see the temple and I go inside, it's just beautiful. The architecture is incredible. And you think about all the history of like what went into building that, and the people that regardless of if you agree with their faith or not, is kind of irrelevant to me, because it's such a beautiful structure. It's a beautiful architecture. It's a place where you go and you see these families that attend, and they're just trying to raise their kids and trying to do right by them, and having this moment of building memories with the kids, and you see this like symbiotic relationship of worship. And I've always found that to be so beautiful and so fascinating. And to have that smack dab in the middle of like an industrial square in the middle of a city is wild. Because again, I can interpret it as like an oppressive structure, or I can interpret it as a thing of beauty. In reality, it's both, right? But in that moment, I can only control what I perceive, right? What I can choose in terms of how I'm engaging with it. And so I've just been trying to be mindful of that as I'm on my own journey here, of what if I choose gratitude? What if I choose positivity? And that's something that is reflected in Eidola's music too. The eviscerate versus mend, is consciously making that choice more in the last year, where eviscerate was so much loss. I mean, Tim died. I had multiple family members die, multiple friends commit suicide. It was very tough. And in eviscerate, I was really leaning. I was really leaning pretty hard into the loss, into feeling rage and hatred and depression and anxiety and all these conflicting emotions. And for mend, I really tried to embody and say, what does healing look like? If I'm really trying to embody celebratory healing and love and embrace the totality of things, what does that look like, and how does that translate sonically into the music? So that's kind of just been my perception changing over the years and embracing where I live. And then your last comment that you had made, you kind of talked about family, and everyone kind of being aware of how you ebb and flow through life, and cutting certain people out and having to make those hard decisions. I think the sign of like a good friend or family, to me, like someone that's a positive influence in your life, is someone you can go months or even years without seeing, and then you see him again, and it's just like nothing ever happened. It's like no time has passed. Like I have a friend named Steele who lives in North Carolina, and is just, I mean, he and I have been friends for almost 15 years. And he's just such a sweetheart and such a legend. And our lives have taken us in crazy directions. I mean, he works for Mr. Beast. He, just like one of the most profitable human beings really in the world. And he's worked for him for a while now, but he's lived all over the map, and we'll go, a whole year without seeing each other sometimes it's, 2 years, but every single time that we get together, it's just like, I mean, it's like no time has passed, man. We'll get a lift in, we'll go eat, we're just catching up, laughing, having a good time. We don't have to text each other every week. We don't have to fucking, check in on each other all the time. We will if we feel like it's it's something to be checked up on. But that's like a true friendship to me. He's been a true, honest friend to me for 15 years. And I have some family members that are like that, and some family members that aren't, some friends that definitely aren't, where, you don't check up on them one time and it's fucking, you're the worst, or, they need something from you right now and you don't have the bandwidth and you're a fucking horrible person. It's like, that's not really a good friend.
No.
That's not really that's not really, if every time they're hitting you up, it's because they need something from you, money or your time or your engagement, rather than just checking in on you or to say hello or to give you that space when you need it. That's probably a sign that they're not really a great person to engage with.
I think that's something, like I was just telling Bridget the other day, because we were sort of talking about this same thing, sort of about just like, I'm tired of being around when it's convenient for other people, when they need something from me. And and I've long said on this show, like, I think relationships are kind of like the give a penny, take a penny thing. Like, you can't always give and you can't always take.
100%.
But I was telling her the other day, I was like, I think I've kind of reached the point where, because I am that person. I'm the person, as you are very aware, that I reach out. I'm the one that typically keeps things going, because I'll think of someone or something and then be like, oh, I should message that person. I should reach out because I'm thinking of them. And it's hard for me because I also know how busy everyone is. And so sometimes, like, I'll be like, I'll do that later, because maybe right now it's like 3:00 in the afternoon. They're busy doing something else. I'll hit them up later, but then I'll forget. And then, like, weeks go by and I'm like, something else will trigger. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I forgot to message that person about something that I was thinking about. Now more time's gone by. Would it be weird to be now if the moment's lost? Is it weird now? I don't know. And I'm in my own head about it. But I think that the other part is, and I know we've talked about this, I think on one of these, or I know at least in person, but it's like, I feel like that's the hard part for, I'll say, me, is with the lot. Like today, like, my Facebook memory was getting a phone call from somebody else that a friend had passed real randomly. And it's a thing where it's like, all you can think of is like, I fucking should have. I should have sent that text. I should have called. I should have anything more than what I did. And I think that's kind of the part I struggle with is, do I step back and let the relationship be whatever it's going to be when I'm not the one 100% steering everything? Am I okay with stepping to the side, losing people that I thought were friends, and realizing that I invested time into something that didn't pan out?
That's a tricky
and
one.
That's hard, because it's like, when you kind of start coming to that conclusion and you're like, well, fuck, man, that's like 10, 15, 20 years that I've invested in something.
Yep.
Is it really worth letting go, or should I hold on to it because all right, I've already put 20 years into this fucker now, so what's a couple more? So it just becomes this like hard road to navigate, where it's like, I think as empathic people, and like you said earlier too, you want to see the best in everybody. And sometimes, like, that's also a curse, because sometimes there's not the best in someone anymore. Yep. Like, the best was in the beginning when the relationship started. And unfortunately, you kind of have to understand that. And I'm struggling with that right now. Like, as of when we're recording this, I think that there's probably going to be some what I thought were pretty long standing relationships that I think I'm going to find were not and are not. And I have to kind of navigate that and be okay with it. And
it's so
don't think I'm ready.
Yeah. I mean, you're striking a chord too with me, because it's tough, man. Cause you get into this sunken cost fallacy a lot of the time.
Ooh, what's that? I don't know what that is. What is that?
Oh, it's
sunken cost.
Sunken cost. Yeah. It's basically like you invested so much time into something that you can't possibly bear the thought of letting it go, because then it feels like it was a waste the entire time. I don't get too bogged down in that, because again, when you're focused on like the gratitude and the memories, right? You can take stock in the times that it was good, that you can take stock in the times that it wasn't as good. And you can still look at it and go, man, I had some really great memories with this person. I had some incredible times, and I learned a lot. Even in the times where it wasn't good, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about them. I learned a lot about what I can tolerate when it comes to friendships and relationships and connectivity. I learned how much I've grown and in the ways that we've grown apart. There's so much you can look at in that, where it's not a sunken cost at all. Even if the friendship ends or alters in a way that's no longer beneficial for both parties, you can really take stock of the totality of it. And so I feel like I've gotten to a point through therapy and my own understandings where I've been able to do that in the relationships that even were really toxic. I mean, people that I know verifiably stole from me tens of thousands of dollars, or embezzled money from me. Or, I mean, I have 3 or 4 instances of people that I cut out in the last year that were 10, 15, 20-year friendships where you find out this stuff and you're like, man, that sucks. You really try to see the best in them and give them every opportunity possible. And then that stuff happens and you're like, well, this, this really could have been different. And I wish it would have been different, but I still, again, have the maturity to look at that and go, well, why would I hate them? That doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't do anything for them. They're not going to listen to me. They hate me. So why would I hold on to this toxic worldview of hatred or vitriol or revenge or any of these other really negative emotions? It doesn't do anything for anybody. It doesn't provide any healing or structure or anything. And it doesn't paint the previous past of the relationship in any better light or any worse. If it only paints it in a worse light, it's only going to dive you down to make you analyze all the other times that they fell short or that you fell short. And you're just going to spin your wheels in this poison. And what good does that do anybody? None, in my opinion. I would rather take stock of the relationship, but also still realize like this is not healthy for either party and it can't continue. That's, I think, a real sign of growth is you look at it and go, no, this can't continue in this way because it's going to be toxic for both parties. It's going to be really negative, but I don't need to spin my wheels on the hate train. I can still be grateful for the times that I had. But yeah, I had a 20-year friendship with a guy that I went to high school with that, I was very close with, and just, really, really sucks, man. It sucks to lose a 20-year friendship like that. But, that it comes a time when you're like, man, I've given you every opportunity in the book and you just do not see it that way. And you're choosing, your own laziness, selfishness, however you want to look at it. And that's your path. I respect it, but I can't continue to enable that. I can't continue to allow that. It's a saying, because he and I have very different perspectives on this. His view of friendship is, you got to accept your friends' decisions no matter what. You got to stand by them no matter what, under any circumstances. And it's like, well, I did that one time and my friend was a massive drug addict and then he died. Was that really what was best for him? Was that real unconditional love, was letting him kill himself with drugs? Or would the more compassionate, empathetic decision would have been to intervene and to say, hey, I love you so much that I know that this decision that you're making is not healthy for you and I don't support it, right? What is really the better move there? Just to embrace your friend killing himself with drugs? That's the move? Is just unconditionally saying, no, you know best, buddy. Just take those opioids. That's a smart move. No, I fucking vehemently disagree. And I implore anyone who has a differing opinion to debate me on it, because I just do not see it that way. I think unconditional love does come with boundaries. It comes with respect. It comes with this level of knowing like, hey, you're not at your best and I would love to help you get there, rather than just embracing you at your worst and saying, oh, well, if you can't have me at my worst, then no, that's not real friendship. In my opinion. That was where he and I really differed. He was like, no, you got to support me in whatever I do. It's like, if you're just fucking blasting heroin and getting blackout drunk, that's not a decision I support you in. I'm sorry. And if you don't view that as like true friendship, then I guess the friendship's run its course, This particular person wasn't blasting heroin, but you get the analogy. It's like he was making other decisions that I just didn't support. I didn't support him in those. And so, yeah, sometimes you have these relationships that run their course, and it's sad, but you can't give in to the sunken cost fallacy. Like, you do have to set boundaries, and you do have to be aware of that, for sure.
You made me think of something that I went through with a friend of mine who passed away through that almost those same set of circumstances. So I'll pose this to you because you made me cry and made me think about it. So I'll pose it back to you.
Well,
Since you're one of the few people.
That's why we have these convos, man. I know that there's people out there that are going to resonate with that.
I'm going to ask the question, and it's really fucking hard. And like, even I don't know that I want to ask it and literally put it out there. But if there's anyone who can give an answer to something I've wrestled with for years about this, it would be you. Do you think we'll ever forgive ourselves for not doing that in real time? Because as you were just explaining all of that, I'm back on the porch with my friend yelling at him that he's hanging out with shitty fucking people. And like, if he just stayed with me and we did the things that we were doing and he looked for happiness in something else other than friends who don't give a fuck about him, use him just because he's the person that they can get high with and do whatever. And it's like, if I would have been more stern, if I would have, I still do it to this day. It's been over 10 years at this point with this person, but I still can't get to the point of forgiveness for not trying harder in my eyes. So I feel like if there's anybody else who maybe saddles with that resentment or with that on their mind all the time, I feel like it'd be you. And in light of what we're talking about, I just wonder,
Definitely.
like, will we ever get to the point of forgiving ourselves in all of this?
I have two answers for you. Or two different thought processes on this, right? Because so I'll tackle it from both, because I think this would cover the ground for you and for other listeners and for myself to cathartically kind of get it out. There's two frames of reference on that, I think, and how I would approach the forgiveness topic in this. I am a Christian, and so the first answer I'll give you is from like a theological perspective. If you do believe, regardless of the entity, if you believe in a God that is omnipotent and all loving and all forgiving, it's a massive disservice to yourself and an affront to that belief to not be able to forgive yourself, because you're essentially saying that you know better than God, and that, yeah, maybe God could forgive you, but you could never forgive yourself. And that's not cohesive in that environment, right? You have to be able to look at it and go, okay, if there's something greater than me that has the capacity to forgive me for not doing enough, then I owe it to that entity and to myself to be able to learn to forgive even in the most difficult circumstances. And so that would be more of a theological perspective. That's like an apologetics perspective, right? But to anyone who's secular or atheist, agnostic, I think there's another alternative answer as well that I would offer. And that is growth and healing and forgiveness. All of these things take time and practice and commitment. Just like anything else that's worthwhile in life, it takes time and effort and practice and commitment and consistency. And I think it's short-sighted to say that that we could potentially never heal or never forgive ourselves. I think there's always a possibility for that, because if there are infinite timelines, there's infinite possibility that you can learn to forgive yourself over time. And the secular perspective here, I think, would really be, everyone has autonomous decision making. Unless you're like some fucking crazy Calvinist, everybody has mega free will in this, like everybody has free will. You are a conscious individual. You make your decisions and you live by those decisions. And our departed friends who chose drugs, that was their decision. And there may not have been anything either of us could have done to dissuade them from that decision. No matter how hard we tried, no matter how much we intervened, no matter if we paid for their rehab and strapped them to a chair, there is a possibility, again, along infinite timelines, that there just wasn't anything more that we could have done. And so rather than sifting through the guilt and the shame, I think that those things are useful tools as temporary mediators and knowledge bringers. I think that they're very great temporary tools, because if you look at it from a biological perspective, again, kind of stemming off the secular perspective, anxiety, for example, right? Just as a for context, you have a biological use for that. When you're in the primate phases, you're in the jungle, you're your ancient Mesopotamian humans, right? Anxiety served a purpose to alert you at predators, right? It alerted you to say, okay, well, I need to protect myself or my young or my family, my tribe. And you would have an anxiety response, and it would trigger that in you, and you'd have a fight or flight, and then that would essentially enhance your survival. And biologically, you would develop that and evolve it over decades and centuries to alert you to danger. Well, that process can be manipulated. And now you have people with a lot of anxiety disorders because our dopamine receptors are fried. We've done so many hours on social media. I'm not going to get back into it, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's like when it comes to dopamine addiction and fucking doom scrolling, now you're getting an anxiety response that used to be strictly reserved for if alligators were in your vicinity. Now you're getting it because you saw a video of a decapitation on 4chan. Like, you're like, what the fuck, dude? Like, you're just squishing your brain into this insane anxiety response that's responding to everything. And now it's responding to everything in such a way it's no longer useful as a biological response. Literally. You're so overwhelmed with anxiety responses. Like, now you can't differentiate what's dangerous and what's not. Now you have no frame of reference for what could harm you and what can't. And that's just to set up the context for guilt and for shame, right? Guilt and shame, same type of biological response, where there is an evolutionary mechanism there where you would feel, okay, well, I feel guilty about this, or I feel shameful because it harmed someone else, or I didn't do enough, or, maybe I could have done something different. It's to attenuate you back on to the right path, to do the best for the most people, right? To give the most healing experience to the most people around you and optimize that, right? So it's great in the moment. It's great in the temporary, because we can look at it and go, fuck, dude, I should have called. I should have texted. I should have went over there, right? And again, it's really useful in that moment. Very useful, because it gives us a sense of they're no longer here, but I am. And so now I have a responsibility that in the future, I'm going to course correct, and I am going to try harder. I am going to do more. I am going to reach out. I'm going to be more involved with my friends. I'm going to really try. But once we've had that realization, once we've come to that conclusion, and we've shifted gears and we've made that commitment to work in that environment and course correct, shame and guilt no longer serve us, right? Because we've already made the changes. We've already had the realization. Now, every time we're going back to that place of shame and guilt, and this is applicable across the board, but for this particular context, you're feeling guilt or shame of not doing enough to help that person. That's not doing anything for you, and it's not doing anything for them either, because again, they're gone. It's happened, but you're still here, and they wouldn't want that for you. They wouldn't want you to go back into the guilt and the shame and just to rehash it over and over. They're in a better place. They're on to the next journey. They've opened the next door, and they would want you to heal and to be your own person and to continue to do better. They're not blaming you. They wouldn't want you actively blaming yourself, right? So it's kind of twofold there. It's like there is the, what could have been done, going over the what could have beens, but there's also this like biological response. It's like that shame and guilt no longer serve you. in repetition. They're great learning mechanisms in the moment, but once you're through that and you have that through line, it then becomes better to focus on the growth and the development and how you can incorporate that in your relationships moving forward. I think that's how I would tackle it. That's how I've tried to tackle it. Now, is it to say that you're not going to still go back once in a while and just be like, fuck me, dude? Like, what could I have done differently? Because I still go there. But it's better to hold it for a moment and let it go than to dwell on it and let it consume you, right? Because that takes you away. That takes you away from being that better friend to the next person who needs it, right? It takes you away from that. So that would be my twofold answer, whether you're, of the theological mind or not. I think that both of those are pretty applicable on both sides. So. But it's tough, man. You and I both been through it, dude. We've lost so many fucking friends, man. It's tough out there, bro. It really is. I've lost friends. I've lost family, and anyone who's experienced an overwhelming amount of loss can attest to some of this. And hopefully the conversation resonates with the people patient enough to listen through it.
I think the thing, right? Try that again. I think the thing about it right now that is kind of hitting for me is seeing a friend of mine, and he's got his dog that's not doing well. And over the last week or so, it's been posts on, social media of like the dog's hind legs are not working. So he's like toweling it to walk it around. He's putting it on like a dolly cart so it can still go on. Oh, I know. And it's like he was supposed to, yesterday was supposed to be the day he was going to put him down. And he was like, made this post about like, I don't have it within me to do it. I can't. It's selfish, I know. And I remember like I was talking with Bridget as we were walking Frankie. And I was like, I almost want to call him and just be like, look, I know it's hard, but I'm in a really weird, fucked up way. I'm envious of your position because you get to choose. You get to say when the last day is going to be. You get to like know it's going to happen. You get to plan accordingly. Give him the cheeseburgers. Give him all the things. Send him out on like a fucking high note. And this, I say this sounds very selfish of me to say it like this, but it's like in the death of my dog, in the death of my friends and my family, it just happened, and I had to deal with it. And obviously, as people who are watching can see, I obviously haven't done a very good job with that necessarily, but it's a thing where it's like, I think that's why it's so hard for me to kind of not give myself that grace, like you were kind of saying, because I just feel like it happens so quickly and there's no resolve. There's no nothing. I'm left with so many questions more than I have a resolution with answers. And I think especially when you start getting into people fucking around with drugs and shit like that, there are no answers. And it just makes it even harder because it's like, it's a thing. I've done a handful of various drugs and shit like that over my existence. Obviously heroin and stuff like that I've never touched and never will. And I guess there's part of this thing where it's like, why can't you be like me? Where it's like, you know what? Fuck it. Every couple years I might do some coke or something like that. Or, hey, you know what? I'm going to take some mushrooms and just fucking trip out. Or I'm going to go do this and just, it's an exercise in escaping yourself. Cause I understand some people are like me where it's just, you're in your own head all the fucking time. And sometimes that's why smoking weed and being on mushrooms or any of these other things isn't, because it actually allows me to be more centered in the moment and probably existing how I feel most people are on a normal level. But I also feel like it's taking it to that level. I'm also like, it's selfish that people do that to themselves and rob the rest of us that are left behind of more time with that person and this guilt and shame and all that. Like you said, that to me, I feel like it's the one thing in my whole life I've never had control over in any way, shape, or form. And if I'm being honest, it probably stems all the way back from when my brother died when I was 2. And even though I have no memories or recollection of him, I'm sure subconsciously that's been some sort of like a trigger or something internally for me, that it's like, when this happens, it probably goes back to all of those things where it's like, well, what am I supposed to do with this now? I don't have anything. I don't have any answers. I get no resolution. I just get left with emptiness. And it's like, you get the shit end of the stick, essentially. It's like, okay, here, horrible shit that you just get to sit with now. Good luck. Figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, it's another great mystery of life that makes it, again, the lowest lows are going to make the highest highs pop. It's really that differentiation. And to your point about imbibing in certain decisions to an extent, an extent that's tolerable for you without dying, right? That comes down to this window of tolerance of like not only what your body can tolerate when it comes to substance, but what your body and your mind can tolerate when it comes to life. And that plays a huge part in your decision-making process of how much to take, right? You might be going through it and you go, okay, well, I'm not going to rob anybody else of this experience. I'm not going to kill myself over it, but shit's hard. I need to escape for a little bit right now. I needed to imbibe these substances. And to them, from an empathetic side, their window of tolerance was breached. They felt like they needed more of an escape. They needed more than what was tolerable to them, because life wasn't tolerable to them. And they needed a greater sense of escape. And then mistakes get made and too much gets consumed, or the wrong type of thing gets consumed, which happens sometimes, or something's laced, or something, has fentanyl in it. And shit just goes haywire, goes wrong. And it's really unfortunate. It's really, really unfortunate. But the fact that you're still here, you said that you're not, you haven't done a good job of dealing with it. I would commend you, man. I'm really proud of you. I think you've done a great job at integrating these things into your consciousness to the best of your ability, based on where you're at in life, to make the cognizant decision to move forward. Because this shit fucking wrecks people a lot of the time, man. A lot of times. Like, this could have railroaded you. These deaths could have fucked you up to the point where now you're heavily addicted to drugs. Maybe you didn't do heroin before, but now you do heroin because it's plunged you off the deep end. Now you're at the bottom of a bottle, destitute. Like, it doesn't take much to get steamrolled, like life again is hard. So I'm proud of you as my friend, but I anybody that's gone through the level of loss that you have and still chooses to show up every day, that's a fucking win. 10 times out of 10. That's a person that has character and shows growth and commitment to living life. And that's a person you want to surround yourself with. That's why we're fucking homies, like you gotta integrate people like that, rather than just people that complain and see the worst in everything. And those people ain't worth your time,
I feel like that's as good of a place to stop. Not to be super morose, but I think like the life lessons and such that we just kind of touched on here at the end, I think really encapsulate everything that we usually do in these, and which is why I wanted to have you on to celebrate this milestone for me. And honestly, I mean, thinking about it, just in what you were saying, I feel like in every time we do one of these, like we kind of hit a really, I think, big moment of our lives where we're at. Like, it's weird. It's mainly with you, so it's kind of weird that like now we're at the end of this one, and there's something of mine I've kind of thrown out there to be like, oh, I'm kind of struggling with this, I guess, at times, and working my way through it as best I can. But I mean, it's like, the first time with the Lyme disease thing, which I think last time we talked about it, it's gone, done with.
Yep.
But at the time, I remember it being a serious, scary thing, and you were figuring it out, and it's not a thing anymore. And obviously, the time that hasn't been aired, but we've talked about previously, of suicidal ideation and stuff like that you've gone through, and traverse those things. And it's I guess here we are, two guys who I I'm going to project this, but it's like, you being a very tall, in shape man and me being heavily tattooed, I think something that I enjoy about our conversations is, I think we live in this world where we probably both grew up where, oh shit, for some reason, Siri's on my computer. Okay, I don't know if it's not hear me talking or if that took over that, but it's a thing where I think a lot of times we have this stigma as guys that it's like we can't be vulnerable, we can't cry about things unless it's like something very tragic, and the fact that I feel like this has become a safe space for you to kind of talk about the things you've gone through, that I am one of those people that you feel comfortable being able to talk about these things, and vice versa, that you, in this moment, in this situation, during this conversation that we're having, I felt comfortable asking you something that that I ask out loud to nobody. When will I feel good enough to move on from this? When will I feel that it's not my fault? When will I have that? And I feel like it's a selfish thing, but as I was listening to you talk, just now, it's the first time I felt like I wasn't alone in that question, that I could ask it and it was okay to ask, and it wasn't going to be someone be like, well, your friend fucking died. Why do you got to make it about you? Or something like that. Cause that's also where I take it. I take it internally. And I know through you and I talking more so, Tim's loss, I put it this way, and I'm not negating anything, but it's like, to me, it's got to be weirder to lose someone like Tim for you, because Tim didn't just belong to you. He belonged to so many people on a way bigger scale than like me losing some of my friends. Yes, they meant something to somebody else, but I didn't have to necessarily share it with as many people, that loss with as many people. And maybe that makes it easier. Maybe it makes it harder. I don't know. But it's a thing where I think in that you and I have found a common place of figuring it out for ourselves, not being afraid to talk about how upset it makes us, things, revolving around that thing. And subsequently now, a couple of years later, and these situations that hopefully we're able to move on and be better people for it, and just not forget our friends. But I don't know. I don't know if I would have ever asked that question to anybody other than you. And so I want to thank you for at least allowing me to feel comfortable and safe to ask that question.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you being vulnerable enough to share it and to, do it publicly. I mean, that's why I enjoy these conversations, because the long form podcasting has gotten very saturated, as you already know, with a lot of different folks talking about a lot of different things. And that's why I really love talking to you, because it's a space where we can have these catch ups and these conversations. And I do firmly believe that they offer people with the patience that listen through the entirety of these podcasts a lot of tidbits of not only seeing us as human beings, seeing me as an entertainer, as like a real person, but seeing kind of the inner workings of some of that stuff. It's not just, I'm not just trying to sell you a product. I'm not just here to try to shill to you or grift in any way. Like, I'm a real dude with fucking a real life. And when we have these conversations and we're vulnerable, we're providing a space where people can have a commentary and they can see that in real time. And they can go, oh shit, I didn't think about this that way. And these guys are being vulnerable. Maybe this will give me an inspiration to be vulnerable in my own life to people that I surround myself with. That's my hope every time that we have a conversation, is that it'll resonate with people. I love catching people up on the tidbits of music stuff, because that's why you tune in. I'm an entertainer. You don't. I'm an all right bodybuilder. I do, I cook sometimes. I'm a pretty good chef, but you don't tune into me because of my fucking tacos. Like like people want to hear about the updates and stuff. But that's always my hope when we talk, is that it'll resonate with people. We've always touched on mental health every time that we talk, I think that's really important. We got an election season right now. We've got crazy wars and turmoil in the world. It's a lot to digest, and I hope that people find a sense of community and can rally around each other and lift each other up, because I think we need way more love in the world than we do hate. And that's why you got to listen to Men by Eidola, coming out on a date that I don't know yet.
Yeah, you got to send that record because I think either the link you had sent or something expired, so I got to get that back, and then I'll
Oh,
re-download
okay,
it for
yeah, I'll
sure this
resend
time.
it. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I'll send you the
but
masters for
yeah,
sure.
I would say typically this is where you plug socials and shit, but we know you ain't got none, so no
Hell
point in
no,
that.
I got some people making fake accounts now. That's always fun.
You've made it.
I
You
I
made it.
really made it. I got parody accounts, baby. But yeah, no, I don't do social media.
I would say, given the fact that this will, like I said, probably come out early next year, I'm going to say probably, if I had to guess, January, February. So it feels weird doing something that's that far out. But like I said,
That's
I
all good.
know I'm going to be going through it when I'm putting this shit out indirectly. So 2025, a lot of big things for you, a lot to look forward to. As we're sitting here now, not in that time, what are you most looking forward to, and what are you hoping for? So maybe when you look back when this comes out, I can remind you of something and kind of check up on it.
Man, I mean, my biggest hope is that my baby is born healthy and happy, and my wife gets through it relatively as painless as possible. Right. That's my biggest hope, is that everything goes well on that front. And then music wise, I mean, I would love for Mend to come out, without a hitch. I think that's set for January for release. The new DGD with a headline tour, which will be in the it'll be like early summer, so like late May, early June. Love the tour package for that one. I think that that's going to be a great tour. And then I would love to do a Mend tour later in the year with Eidola, do like another DGD tour, and then an Eidola like US, UK, Germany, Netherlands type run. That would be a really strong goal of mine. And then I would love to put out a solo record next year. I have about 7 or 8 tracks that I've been workshopping right now that are very different. When I set out to do, when I visualize doing solo stuff, a lot of people, it's like, oh, you should do some country, or you should do some stripped down and do some acoustic, some singer songwriter stuff, kind of the traditional method for a rock guy does, rock goes acoustic, fucking. And that stuff's cool. I have a project with a guy named Chae, right, from Vegas. That's more
He's in
country.
wait, he's doing country stuff now. I was gonna say he was in that band with Spencer.
Well, not yet, but I mean, him and I are doing a project and it bangs.
Okay.
I mean, he's
a good dude.
He's a great dude, super talented, amazing guy. It's some ass kicker country too. It's like some fucking foot in the door type country. It's really cool. It's got riffs, it's got really cool stuff. So
it's like Gideon,
my goal is to
like not as heavy.
Oh yeah. So we want to do some stuff like that. My goal is to get that done. I'd love to do some more like singer songwriter stuff in the future. Some stripped down. But where my head's at creatively, I sat down to write some solo songs, and it's just like some of the most intense guitar riffing production. I mean, all the songs are like 2 minutes long, and they are just all over the map. I mean, just the shreddiest fucking crazy stuff I could think of. Like Kiesel sent me all these new guitars. I've just been like at my desk, like ripping, and super fun stuff. So I'm excited. I'd love to get a solo record out. Be an Eidola DGD. I'd love to get a solo record out later in the year. That project with Ty later in the year. And by the time that's all done, then I got to go back and start writing some more DGD and Eidola. So let's just keep on trucking.
Well, looking forward to whatever next year brings for you, and just proud to call you a friend, man. Thank you so much for doing this, and as always,
Likewise,
great chatting.
So that was my conversation with Andrew. I want to thank him once again, as always, for the time, for being a part of this milestone. I feel like it's kind of weird. As I'm sitting here doing this right now in preparation to get out a week's worth of episodes, I'm thinking about a lot of the milestones I've been around for in Andrew's life, professionally and personally in some instances. And to have him be a part of mine, of this show, I feel like is pretty huge. I feel like we just are really interconnected on a lot of things. And for someone who hates to impress and doesn't really like being social and all that kind of stuff on social media, I should say, it's always kind of amusing to me that he has just really taken to the platform of doing these things, because I would love to hear him do way more and see what he taps into. But I think there's something special for those people that he chooses to partake in some of their creative things. I know there's a couple other podcasts that he does, and they have a rapport with him in a different way, but it's an avenue that you go to find those things out. Like when he does the kind of the album deep exploration lyrically and thematically and all that kind of stuff, he goes really deep with some of these other podcasts. And it's great that those shows, very much like mine, are not the biggest shows in the world that he could do to do all of that stuff, that he chooses to, I'll say, have a little bit of integrity in who and what he spends his time doing. And sometimes it's not about giving yourself the biggest platform to do something, but knowing that it's going to be genuinely enjoyed, not only between himself and whoever else he's talking to, but the people that are listening to it, and that he kind of gives all of us some credibility in the grand scheme of things as well. And that's not lost on me. So I'm always appreciative of any of the time that he gives me on this show or in general. I really hope a lot of people have someone like an Andrew in your life. And I'm going to echo that sentiment probably in each one of these 7 episodes with the different people that are on it, because I know that almost all of them individually and collectively offer something to me that I'm so appreciative of. And literally as when I'm doing this, we just went through some home renovation projects and stuff, and got a new toilet installed that a friend of mine helped me with, and was a thing where I realized in leading up to this 500th episode week and a lot of things going on previous to this, and now that all these episodes are done, I got a really fucking solid crew of people that I surround myself with. And I know that to be true, but I also think sometimes I forget just how extraordinary of the people I have in my life. People who are not only talented in one thing, but are also good at other things that I just am not. And then I think to myself, why the fuck are you even friends with me? I don't have much to offer you by comparison. And it's a thing where sometimes I realize that is the value of friendship. It doesn't have anything attached to it, but you give when you can, and sometimes you take when you can as well. It goes back to even something Dewey and I talk about all the time, of what makes this medium great, but also what makes people that understand this really good people, is that they understand sometimes you need to take when you need it, and sometimes you need to give more than you take in the grand scheme of things. And I think that is a lesson over this last year, over this whole course of the podcast. It is something that I think I forget about sometimes, and I feel like I take more than I give, but in some of my interactions with some of my closest friends, I realize I probably give a lot more of myself than I realize. And to start wrapping up this episode, sorry, got a little lost in my own thoughts there for a second. To start wrapping up this episode, as always, Andrew does not have any socials. But if you'd like to keep up with Eidola, you can go to Eidola on Twitter, Eidola on Instagram, and Eidola UT on Facebook. Dance Gavin Dance, if you'd like to keep up with them. I was going to say DGD, I'm just so used to shorthanding it, but Dance Gavin Dance on Facebook, Dance Gavin Dance on Instagram, and DGD the band on Twitter. You can follow myself at Bruce Speak Pod on all your social media platforms of choice. Rate, review, subscribe. You know why that is important. Do such wherever you can. All of the love that the show's been getting over the last year or so has been crazy. Had some crazy experiences going back to that integrity episode from a few weeks back, where that came about because they shared my episode with Brandon from Bleeding Through, and that is insane to me. So greatly appreciated everyone who does or takes the time to listen to the show and spread the word of it. It is 100% not unnoticed, and I appreciate every single one of you that takes the time to send me an email, to DM me, or anything like that. It's been great. Please continue to do such. And also something I hope you continue to do is support the fine folks over at Rockabilia. You can use our code brutally at checkout. Head on over to rockabilia.com. Check out whatever they have going on over there. They have a ton of collabs that they're doing constantly. They are just, I mean, shit, I got a Gavin hoodie. That's a little bit of an older hoodie that's been out of stock for a long time. And I realized recently I don't have any Gavin merch, and I needed to rectify that. So I went to Rockabilia. I typed in Gavin. There was a t-shirt I really wanted, but unfortunately it was a women's shirt, and I didn't feel like I could rock that very well. So I settled for the hoodie, and I have been getting a lot of compliments on it from a lot of my friends who love the band as well. So I am also a supporter of Rockabilia. I spend my money over there as well. So head on over there, use our code brutally at checkout, take 10% off your total purchase order. Support the fine people over there for supporting us. And for the Brutally Speaking podcast, I will see you all tomorrow, where I have Patrick Galante returning. We get into a lot of interesting stuff on that one, and I'm very excited to bring that one to you. So I will see you tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your day.